Reborn in India as a Magnate. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 251, Reconstruction work starts. These supplies were bought by Belsina with real money. It was good enough to do his best to help the residents of the town. Not to mention adult men. Even a 10-year-old child would be hungry after 2 hours, after eating a bowl of porridge, and his stomach would growl. But Belsina didn't have that much money to help everyone and feed them, so he could only give them porridge twice a day. It was good enough to ensure that these people didn't starve to death. It seemed that it depended on whether the officials had a conscience. Anyway, Bel's personality couldn't care so much, and he didn't have the money to care about the lives of so many people. After the first porridge distribution, all the rules were formulated. 2 hours later, Belsina returned to the industrial park with his people. Enough manpower was arranged to distribute porridge and pickles to the residents of the town twice a day. Then all the officials were gathered in the office for a meeting. The content of the discussion was of great importance, that is, how to save themselves and start the reconstruction work meeting. Belsina has made a promise to his employees, that is, after the disaster, Belsina will be responsible for 60% of the reconstruction funds for the collapsed houses, and the employees will be responsible for 40%. If the Singh Industrial Park is really short of money, it can advance payment, but all the expenses of reconstruction work will be deducted from the employees' wages. Even so, everyone is very satisfied, and no one raises objections like Belsing. Everyone prays like a god, blessing their boss and master to live 100 years. Such a good boss can no longer be found in Indian society. Everyone really hopes to work under the Singh family for a lifetime and be a member of the Singh family forever. All the leaders of the Singh Industrial Group gathered in the office. Everyone smoked and drank tea to discuss how to start the reconstruction work. At this time, Belsing smiled and asked Beasley Gandhi, the manager of the brick factory. Manager Beasley, after the baptism of the flood, are there any damaged parts in the brick kiln of the brick factory? When can production be resumed? Beasley was very excited to hear that the boss was the first to ask him a question, and said with a laugh, "Boss, I have to admit that you were really foresighted in building the brick kiln so solidly. There were drainage ditches dug around it. Because the drainage ditches were deep and fast enough, all the accumulated water was basically drained out of the range of the brick kiln. So the brick kiln only suffered some minor injuries. After reinforcing it with cement, it can resume production. It's just that the coal was soaked by the heavy rain, and it's very difficult to burn it. It's hard to reach the temperature requirement. This is an indisputable fact. The coal that has been soaked in water for several weeks has an abnormally rich water content. It's not a problem to put this coal in the furnace to burn, but it's hard to imagine how difficult it is to use this coal that has absorbed a lot of water to burn bricks. But without coal, there is no way to burn bricks, let alone rebuilding work. This is a top priority. What can you do without bricks?" So Belsinger frowned and said, "This is a troublesome matter, but the reconstruction work cannot be delayed. We can't let all employees and their families live in tents all the time. It's so hot and stuffy. If they have never lived in tents, it's okay for a short time, but if they live in tents for a month or two, it will be hell. So the reconstruction work must be carried out as soon as possible. The coal has been soaked in water, and the water content is too high to make bricks. You can use an excavator or a forklift to divide the coal into small sections for drying. If it doesn't work, plug in an electric fan and blow it dry for me. Then the brick factory will reorganize the employees to produce bricks and strive to produce the first batch of bricks in 10 days. I'm not doing this for the sake of selling, but for the sake of rebuilding the employees. You will make money in the future. Do you understand? Master, you have said this to this extent. If you don't understand, you are a fool." Beasley, the director of the brick factory, immediately stood up from his chair. Patting his chest, he said with a Bell character, "Don't worry, boss. Our brick factory will go all out. Give me the specifications of brick production and we will have wet bricks produced in 2 days. He waved his hand and asked Beasley to sit down. Then he smiled and said to everyone, although the red bricks in the past were very standard, such bricks were not strong enough and could not withstand the baptism of strong winds and waves. So I have to change the specifications. The bricks produced next will be rectangular bricks with a length of 20 centimeters and a width and height of 10 centimeters. Then the rebar is inserted in the middle and the cement is canned. This can maximize the earthquake resistance of the house. The disaster resistance is fully affirmed. The brick and tile houses built in this way can withstand not only floods, but even a magnitude 5 earthquake. The brick factory produces bricks. Although the specifications of the bricks have been changed, they can be fully produced by adjusting the machine. Besides, this kind of brick is only for internal use. The bricks sold outside are only half the size of the current ones. Beasley remembered it. After Belsinger asked for all the standards of the bricks, he sat down. Then Singer turned his attention to Ivan, the general manager of Cement Asbestos Tiles. After the brick factory, it's your asbestos tile factory. The asbestos tile manufacturing company should go all out to make asbestos tiles, add more asbestos to them, and make them thicker, so that they can extend their service life. All the machines in the cement asbestos tile factory have been dismantled. Because of the experience of assembling and dismantling once, they can be reassembled. It only took 3 days to resume production. It's no big deal. As long as there is cement raw material, enough cement asbestos tiles can be produced. Because Ivan is a guy who doesn't like to talk, but has a steady personality, and is very efficient, he just smiled and nodded without saying a word, and recorded all the requirements in his notebook. His personality is like this, so no one cares about him. At this time, without Belsinger mentioning him, Marbury quickly signaled to Mark, the newly appointed director of the cement factory, with his eyes. Mark, who attended such an important meeting for the first time, stood up a little nervously and assured Bell, "Boss, rest assured, the cement plant will resume production as soon as possible and at full capacity and will definitely not hold you back." Seeing everyone working so hard and being so considerate of his boss's character, he felt very happy, and the meeting ended. Everyone was responsible for their own affairs, and the general manager was Marbury, who had been promoted to vice president of the group, who monitored the whole process. In this way, Belsinger has been living in the industrial park, although he has maids and chefs to serve him personally. But because there are too many things to do, and people are needed everywhere, the boss himself cannot stay out of it. So it became that, wherever there is a problem with the gyro, he will appear there. Fortunately, the industrial park did not suffer too much damage. With the full cooperation of various mechanical vehicles, the reconstruction work went very smoothly. After a week, all the factories were rebuilt, and after debugging, they began to produce mature products. Chapter 252, spending a lot of money to get it done in one go. In order to show their commitment to their employees and to show the character of the Bell family, they treat these employees as their own relatives. This time, Belsinger was very tough in the reconstruction work. After fully organizing the industrial park to carry out production work, Belsinger locked himself in the house and personally drew a sketch of the rebuilt house. Then he found the designer, made specific design parameters, and formed a very perfect rendering, which was published in the middle of the street in the shanty town. Let all the employees' families see this house pattern they need to live in the future. Wow, it's so beautiful. It can be said that it is a garden house. It is all made of cement bricks and reinforced asbestos tiles. It is very strong and has 3 floors from top to bottom. Because India is very hot, most families like to cool off in the yard at night, so a very large open-air balcony was built on the 3rd floor. It can be used for people to rest or eat at night. The house covers an area of more than 100 square meters, and the upper, middle and lower floors are a total of 300 square meters. The top floor is the attic with 2 small rooms and a warehouse. The 2nd floor is where the master bedroom is located. All the rooms together are more than 4. The ground floor is the living room and kitchen. Due to the government's supporting facilities, there is no bathroom built, so only a dry toilet can be built. The small courtyard is very flat and clean. There are 2 warehouses on the left, and a shower room and toilet are also needed. The right is where the livestock live. Although 30% of the employees' families raise livestock, the remaining 70% do not raise livestock, but it is also necessary to build a place for these livestock to live. If the conditions are good, they can raise a few chickens and a sheep at home, and they can eat meat anytime and anywhere. So it is necessary to build a chicken coop of a large area, including a barn, a pen for raising sheep, and a large parking garage. Of course, it is not realistic to park in the parking garage, but it can be used as a sundries and storage room. They are all surrounded by tall courtyard walls. There is a large iron gate with 2 open doors in front. All the houses face south. In order to show the unity and consistency of the Singh family, Bel Singh personally bought a village 2 kilometers away from the gate of Singh Industrial Park with a small amount of money. He wanted to settle all the employees in the village and dig several deep wells, as well as first-class living facilities such as garbage incineration sites. The house is so beautiful and the consideration is so thoughtful. Unexpectedly, these damned untouchables can live in a garden house one day. Rows of houses are put together to form a small village. 2 kilometers away is the location of the Singh Industrial Group factory where these male owners work. Because the area of the village is really not small, there are 2 large pieces of arable land in the south and east, which can be divided equally among everyone. The total amount of arable land obtained by each family is almost more than 1 acre, so that men can go to the factory to work and earn cash, and they will have a large income every month. Women and the elderly can raise livestock and farm at home. The only regret is that there is no primary school in this village. The children had to go to the town to go to school, but everyone was very satisfied with this. Some old people even began to wipe their tears. The women put their hands together and prayed to Lord Shiva, blessing the Bel Singh family with a long life. After the announcement of such a plan, everyone began to boil, especially the workers, who knew that the raw materials they produced were used to build houses for their own families. How dare they be careless? Everyone's work enthusiasm reached 300%, and even some healthy old people and adult women joined in the production work. The entire industrial park can be said to be in full swing, full of hope and laughter everywhere. Because there are many engineering machinery joining in the reconstruction work, the progress of the project is very gratifying. The big bulldozer has enough horsepower to level out the addresses of more than 50 houses in one day, and then the excavator digs the foundation behind the buttocks. When everything is ready, Bel Singh spent a lot of money to gather all the nimmer in the town under his own hands and prepared to start the construction of the employee residential area of Singh Industrial Park. Because all the raw materials are ready, there are large machines to help, plus there is strength in numbers. On average more than 10 houses can be built every day. Of course, these 10 houses are straw houses. If you want to live more comfortably, you can only rely on the workers to decorate them themselves. Bel Singh is not God. It is good enough to build houses for you. Can he also buy furniture and pots and pans for you? Of course, you have to rely on yourself. There is no benefit in being greedy. God will blame you for your laziness. Here, the construction of the plastic production plant and warehouse of Singh Industrial Company has not been delayed while building the residential area for workers. Although the flood stopped for more than a month, the construction speed was unusually fast after the resumption of production. 10 days later, the machinery shipped from Germany was officially transported to Singh Industrial Park by road. All the machines were moved into the factory and then installed under the guidance of German engineers. Then Al-Mashar, as his new follower, ran to Mumbai to receive the plastic particles shipped back from the United States. They returned to Singh Industrial Park and placed them in the warehouse. Bel Singh, who was supervising the mechanical connection work in the workshop of the plastic products factory, did not expect that the old housekeeper would come to the town to find him in advance. Seeing that he was so busy, the old housekeeper felt very distressed and took the initiative to undertake some of his own work, but the old housekeeper was old, and Bel was afraid of tiring the old man. Only one job was arranged, to rebuild the bridge, and the destroyed bridge was rebuilt on a larger scale and stronger than before. Because of inexperience, he contacted the construction company that built the bridge before, and spent 80% of the funds to rebuild a high-quality cement bridge. It was officially opened to traffic after 20 days, and then the old housekeeper had nothing to do, so he organized all the villagers of Laga and rebuilt the damaged stone road. Although Singh led people to work hard in his industrial park and arranged all the affairs of his family in an orderly manner, the plague broke out in Sinjar a week after the flood, and the town's central hospital was full of patients. Most of these outbreaks were caused by malaria caused by mosquito bites. Even with effective treatment, the mortality rate was still as high as 10%. The bodies of the dead people could only be burned and buried deep to isolate all sources of infection. Fortunately, among the supplies that Bel Singh asked Jamal to buy, there was an essential piece of equipment, that is, mosquito nets. All of them were distributed to workers and their families, as well as masks and sanitary equipment. Pay attention to disinfection and deworming. No one in the Singh family was infected with this damn tropical disease malaria. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 253. Continue to build the house. The road from the town to the house was finally built, and the bridge was also connected, which was taller and stronger than before. Even if there was a flood as big as before, it would not be washed away. This made Bel Singh feel very happy that there were many people around him, but few of them were reliable. Bel Singh was very moved that the old housekeeper could take the initiative to help him take on the task of building the bridge. It was a lie to say that he didn't miss home after not returning home for so many days. After the bridge was connected, he could finally take a car directly back home, which made Bel very excited. It also made several women feel how difficult life would be without Bel Singh. Seeing their husbands return home safely, several women were also very excited, busy arranging the kitchen to prepare a sumptuous dinner. They urged Bel Singh to take a bath and change clothes, have a good meal in the evening, and then chat with Lina. While chatting with her son, they laughed and joked with each other, discussing what the child should be called. It has not been decided until now. I don't know if it is because Bel Singh and Lina's knowledge reserves are too poor, or what. The child's name has never been decided. He slept all night with his wife and children in his arms. He got up from the bed at 10 o'clock the next morning. After breakfast, he accompanied Lina and took a walk after dinner. Then he took people to the village to inspect everywhere. It was not bad. All the things he had explained were implemented and executed. Now the entire Laga Valley has returned to the living conditions before the disaster, but seeing everyone seeing him, the master, come to inspect, I always feel that everyone has something to say and feels very embarrassed. They look at me and dodge, which makes Bel Singh confused. But when I asked everyone what was going on, they all shook their heads and were very embarrassed to tell me. At this time, the follower, Almasha, pulled Bel Singh aside and whispered in a low voice, "Master, we actually want to ask you when the promised rebuilding of everyone's house will be implemented." Everyone is embarrassed to say it, embarrassed to ask, but everyone is anxious. Bel Singh wanted to slap himself twice. He promised everyone to rebuild the house. He had said such a thing during the dry season. However, it was not implemented until the middle of the rainy season. The affected workers of Singh Industrial Group moved into high-end and bright garden houses, but there was no movement in their own village. How could everyone not be anxious? I wanted to ask, but didn't dare to ask, for fear of offending my master, so I could only hold it in my heart and feel uncomfortable. No wonder everyone looked at me strangely, always dodging. After figuring out the situation, Bel Singh fled back to the castle in embarrassment. Then he plunged into the study, made a phone call, and began to allocate materials for the entire Singh Industrial Group. Although now after the epidemic, it was the golden period of reconstruction. The subsidiaries of Singh Industrial Group were busy one by one, and 24-hour production could not meet the market demand. The trucks pulling goods have lined up for several kilometers, and made a lot of money. As the vice president of the group, Marbury, who used to be the boss of a cement company, complained about his long-term interests. "We should take this opportunity to expand production. Hundreds of tons of cement produced every day are not enough to sell. Who can be willing to watch the money rushing away like water in front of him?" But he didn't expect that the products produced by his family were not enough to sell. But Bel Singh actually left a part of it to renovate the houses for the whole village. Moreover, the area of the renovated houses is not small. The specifications are 1.5 times that of the houses for the affected employees. How much raw materials are needed? This is all white money. Now it is not enough to sell, and some of it has to be left. Although everyone doesn't say it, it is very uncomfortable in their hearts. Belsina had no choice but to explain to Marbury the reason for his mistake. He had promised good things in the dry season, but the position has not been implemented in the rainy season. His words are not counted. Who will listen to him in the future? How can he face those villagers? It doesn't matter if he earns less money, but the foundation of his family cannot be shaken. Things that are promised must be done. The master has said so much. What can Marbury, as the vice president of the group, do? He could only grit his teeth and start to put pressure on the managers of several subsidiaries. He should first meet the needs of the master for building materials and then sell them. After all, the group company is the master's private property. The workers can only listen to him. In this way, the building materials were taken out little by little from the population of the group company's manager level. The needs of the entire Laga villagers were met, and 3 days later the entire Laga valley became completely lively. Everyone helped the old and the young to move things from the original house, and then everyone worked together, men and women, old and young, to knock down the house, sort out the foundation, and then the trencher dug the foundation, fill in the big stones, cement, and steel bars, and then build the house on it. He almost broke his promise to these villagers, so Belsina changed his ways and personally watched the construction site. Wherever there was a little dissatisfaction, the site made modifications, and the houses built were 2 words: solid. It is also beautiful with 3 floors, especially the yard must be large and there must be many barns. The fruit trees in front of and behind the houses that the villagers were reluctant to cut down must also be given up. There is also a large garden in the backyard to grow some vegetables, which is enough for a family of 5. It is convenient, fast and saves money, and the vegetables grown by themselves are delicious. For 3 consecutive days, he got up every morning and didn't return home until dark at night. Staring at the construction site all day made Belsina feel very tired, but the villagers looked at him with respect and love. Even some children were brave enough to surround him, asking questions and staring at him with a pair of curious big eyes. They were not as afraid of him as before. Although the villagers of Laga are now very rich, they are still far from the level of developed countries. The children can only say that they are warm and well fed. It is impossible to play with toys and eat snacks. In addition, there is a greedy pregnant woman in his family, plus 3 other greedy cats, so snacks can be said to be piled up like a mountain. After breakfast every morning, Belsina would take a big backpack and scratch all the collections of the 4 women in the family. After the robbery, he turned around and ran away, carrying these snacks to the site to supervise the progress of the project, and gave them to some children to make them feel that the present day is the happiest time. Although it is the middle of the rainy season, it is necessary to have rain every day, but the rain is very little. However, because of the humidity every day, the air feels very hot and stuffy, and Belsina is working hard to supervise the construction site. Unexpectedly, after a heavy rain, he fell ill with a high fever, which made everyone feel very distressed. They quickly invited the doctor from the central hospital to diagnose and treat him personally, and he felt better after an 4th drip. Chapter 254, the hottest business after the disaster. A heavy rain caused Belsina to have a high fever. The high fever of 39 degrees scared the whole family. They quickly found the director and doctor of the central hospital and rushed to the Singh family for treatment. After taking the antipyretic injection and physical therapy, he woke up, but his head was splitting, his throat was dry and his voice was hoarse. Looking at the women around him who were crying, he said with a smile, "What are you doing? What are you doing? Am I fine? Why are you crying? It's just a cold and fever after being caught in the rain. What's the big deal?" Seeing Belsina lying on the bed, his face was red, and he was still stubborn. He didn't consider the feelings of these women at all, which made Lina very angry. She stretched out her jade hand and pinched it. Belsina's arm was then said angrily, "You still have the nerve to say that? Don't you know that you were unconscious when you came back with a high fever of 39 degrees? If it was any higher, you would have been roasted." If you were in any danger, what would happen to me and my children and sisters? What would happen to the whole family? You don't even consider your own feelings. You scared us to death, you know. As if to cooperate with Lina, the youngest Prajaya burst into tears. She threw herself into Belsing's arms, hugged Bel's neck, and shook him. Brother Bel, you looked like a cooked shrimp just now. Your body and face were all red, which scared us to death. Don't do this again. If something happens to you, how will we live? To be honest, it's no wonder that the girls were scared. Although it is already the 21st century, the feudal society remnants of satiating husbands are still very strong in remote villages in India. Because Lina was pregnant, and Mrs. Lina had a high status, there would be no problem, but the other girls who had had sex with Bel would all be forced to satiate their husbands. Even if they don't want to, they will be forced to execute it. You can imagine how miserable it will be at that time. Belsinger is the sky of these women, and the protector of these women. Without this protector, who can protect them? It would be strange if they are not scared to death. After comforting a few girls, they were allowed to go back, leaving Natasha to take care of Belsinger. After seeing the ladies leave, Bel smiled bitterly and said with his mouth open, "My throat is dry. I have been comforting them. I haven't even had a sip of water yet. Natasha, go get me some tea." Natasha nodded gently and ran out in 2 or 3 steps. At this time, the old housekeeper who had woken up after hearing Master Singh hurried over. Seeing Belsinger leaning on the bed with his eyes wide open smoking, he was relieved. While asking Belsinger to take good care of his illness, he took over all the work on Belsinger. If Belsinger had any problems, the whole family would be in trouble. How could he, the housekeeper, have a role? By then, the Belsinger family had lost its pillar and there was no hope for its rise. All his efforts in his life were ruined. Now, even if the old housekeeper was exhausted, he could not let Belsinger interfere in any affairs. There was no way Belsinger could only lie in bed to recuperate, and at the same time, he could listen to the old housekeeper report to him on the progress of his work at night. After making important instructions for everyone to execute, Belsinger finally flew out like a caged bird released from prison after a week of smooth sailing. For his own freedom, in order to avoid the women who were chirping in his ears, he ran to the town in a flash. When entering the town center from the suburbs, he saw the simple shacks built by the victims on both sides with plastic cloth, straw curtains, and even a few tree branches. These victims were very thin, with dull eyes, and using their only belongings to maintain their lives. Although the government chose to provide timely disaster relief, what was the use of 200 grams of rice per person per day? 40 eels of rice was not enough for one person to drink, even if it was made into porridge. Moreover, after the flood, safe water sources are the top priority. You can't even dream of such a luxury as drinking porridge. You can cook rice into half-cooked rice and eat it without starving to death. Otherwise, you can take risks like those people who drank dirty water and died painfully with a bloated stomach. You can either take the risk of drinking dirty water and die painfully, or find a way to get some clean water to survive. So water is the most precious now? It can be said that the price of a bottle of mineral water is more than 100 times the usual price. Many unscrupulous businessmen have made a fortune with mineral water, and those water filtration machines or disinfection tablets are also very popular and in-demand commodities. 200 grams of rice per person per day, plus the scarce water source, have tortured these disaster victims physically and mentally. Because there are too many people, even if they have the habit of charity, high-caste masters like Belsing cannot act in time, and do not have so much money to buy those bottled mineral water. I can only choose to ignore it, but as I get closer to the center of the town, I feel that the atmosphere around me has changed. There are many teenage girls standing on both sides of the avenue. Although they are wearing beautiful saris, their eyes look dull. It makes people sigh. It seems that the souls of these girls have been taken away by the devil, and what is left is just a shell. In front of these young girls, there are some rich people with big bellies and some monks in monk robes, pointing and talking to these girls. Just like picking goods, they buy their favorite goods with money. What kind of fate these girls will face next can be imagined. If a girl is lucky, if she meets a man who treats them sincerely, she can still live happily. If a girl is unlucky, she will be so lucky to be chosen by those priests. The fate of these young girls is not much better than those prostitutes sold to brothels in feudal society. I didn't expect that the center of the town would become a slave market for human trafficking, and most of the people sold were young girls. There are also some little boys who no one cares about. Most of these little boys are orphans. Seeing this, Belsina frowned. After the disaster, those who couldn't survive had to sell their children, although the Indian parliamentary law explicitly prohibited the sale of slaves. But in remote villages, this is very common. Even if they stay with their parents, the fate of these girls is foreseeable. It is a blessing not to starve to death. It is better to let them beg for their lives. These girls know it themselves, and their parents know it even better. What kind of fate are these girls facing? But you can't change it. What can you do? It's better to survive than to starve to death. Because there are too many people in the slave market, the traffic is congested, and the jeep that Belsing is sitting in is like a turtle, slowly moving forward, surrounded by people laughing and talking. It can be said that the scene is as miserable as it can be. Chapter 255. It's really dark. As Belsina's driver and bodyguard leader, the human mule Brooke said to Belsina while driving, looking at the bustling slave markets on both sides with a frown. Master, I guess you also know the origins of these girls. If it weren't for your foresight and your family's wealth, not only would the families of the employees of the Singh Industrial Group be in this situation, but even our Laga Valley would not be spared. Master, you have done a great deed, saving so many people. Belsina sighed and shook his head as he looked at the young girls who were picked up like commodities, and said with a wry smile, but my ability is still too weak, and I can't save people as I please. Look at these young girls. You can imagine what kind of fate they will face in the future. Poor people, there is no way to save them. How can I be considered to have done a great deed? Human Mule Brooke didn't think so. Seeing Belsina's low mood, he planned to say something light-hearted, and said with a laugh, Master, there is nothing we can do about this. After all, compared to the country, the ability of an individual is too weak. What can you do? If the government is like this, it's good enough that you can protect us. What else do you want? Let's try someone else and see if they can protect these people. Belsina just shook his head and looked at the girls who were picked like commodities in silence. Soon the car arrived at the building materials store. Because the building where he and Lina went to school and lived since childhood had been completely destroyed. To be honest, too many people died, and it was not suitable for a noble person like himself to live in, so it was converted into a warehouse. Now Belsina's residence is the general manager's office on the second floor of the building materials store. He eats and lives here, and directs the reconstruction of the family at close range. He came to the general manager's office of the building materials store to hold a meeting with the leaders. Everyone discussed solutions to some problems. After the business was finished, Belsina frowned and said to everyone, I think everyone who lives in the town knows what industry is the most popular after a disaster. That's right, it's the slave trade. Have you seen those girls? They can't control their future destiny. They have become zombies. How pitiful. Among the people present, only Belsing is young. Who is older than him? He has seen everything. Although the Indian government is complacent about being the most populous democracy in the world, in the dark corners, those dirty and shameless transactions are always going on, and have never stopped. His darkness is beyond people's imagination. Only Belsing, who is protected by the old housekeeper under his wings, and grows up happily, has never seen such a miserable situation. Who hasn't seen it? Everyone looked at each other and knew what their master was like after being hit by such a shameless transaction. They felt that their master was very pitiful. The young eagle finally flew into the sky and was baptized by the storm and thunder. Only then did he know that the world was difficult. The world is not as beautiful as you think. It is inevitable to feel uncomfortable. After all, we are all human beings. Although the genders of both parties are different, we can empathize with each other. If you were placed in the slave market and chosen by others, facing the dark fate and endless pain, what would you do? But isn't there a saying that goes, you will get used to it slowly? Society is like this. You can't change it, you can only adapt to it. You will become numb after seeing it more, and it will slowly pass. So everyone began to persuade their own masters not to take it to heart. The master has protected so many people in Sing industries. It's good. What else do you want? Maybe they have injured the caste system for thousands of years. Everyone has learned to be patient, adapt, and accept it. They also believe that, as long as they live in their own class and don't resist, they will be reborn after death. They will definitely become a superior person and a rich man, and change their grassroots fate. This kind of thinking is deeply rooted. You can't change it if you want to, not to mention that you, a noble master of a high caste, can't turn the world upside down. Seeing that everyone was talking about fate and the consequences of the disaster, they ignored their responsibilities. I felt very angry, so I waved my hand and asked all these bastards to get out of my room. Then I sat by the window, smoking and looking at the messy, but very lively street. I looked around and saw a scene that made me unable to suppress my anger. On the opposite side of the street, two Brahmin monks who were in their 60s and 70s were dressed like human beings and had kind faces. But when choosing a little girl who was only 6 years old, they actually took off her clothes and checked her like an animal. They even argued about who should sell how much money to buy this little slave girl. These Brahmin priests, who were so old and had experienced countless things, could be said to have sharp eyes and golden eyes. As long as these Brahmins took a fancy to the little girl, no matter how ugly or dirty she was, they would be fine. When she grows up, she will definitely be a rare beauty. It can be said that these Brahmin priests have seen countless women. Since they became priests and became monks, they have enjoyed the bodies of countless women. They are the most experienced group of people. The two old guys argued back and forth, making a lot of noise, while the little girl who was stripped naked and became a little white mouse just squatted on the ground with her arms folded, silently crying. Her thin shoulders twitched because of her low mood, like a wounded little swallow, squatting in the rain and shivering in the cold. How miserable it is. But the surrounding big-bellied and luxuriously dressed, high-class noble masters actually laughed and cheered for the two arguing Brahmin priests. Are these people still human? Don't they have children? This little girl looks only 6 or 7 years old. It's really intolerable. Belsina can't stand it anymore. He threw the cigarette butt hard on the ground and stomped it out with his feet while holding the clothes while cursing. He walked downstairs and saw the human mule Brook chatting and drinking tea with some people in the yard. He started to scold him and kicked him. You are so leisurely. Hurry up and take your people with me. I can't stand it anymore. These beasts, wait and see how I deal with these old perverts. Although the human mule was kicked, he felt very incredible when he saw his master's anger. What happened? Who made his master so angry? Does he want to die? Do you think that my human Luo Brook is a decoration? Hearing his master's order to grab weapons, he pulled out the pistol from his waist at once, loaded the bullet with a click, and then shouted madly, Master, tell me who it is. We will go and eat him alive right away. Who is it that makes you so angry? Why so much nonsense? Bell just waved his hand and asked the human Luo Brook to follow him, and then walked out of the building materials store. Pushing through the crowd, he rushed inside 30 meters away, but there were two arguing Brahmins quarreling. The two people were competing with each other, which temple they belonged to, which religious sect they belonged to, and how powerful they were. Some high-caste masters in luxurious clothes around them also divided into two groups to cheer behind the Brahmin priests of the same religious sect, and the two sides quarreled fiercely. After finally rushing into the crowd, Belsina quickly took off his jacket and wrapped the little girl, who was only 6 or 7 years old, around her body so that she could get some warmth and some dignity. Then he stood up, stared at the two Brahmin priests who were staring at him stupidly with cold eyes, and said with a sneer, You two don't have to argue. I bought this little girl, and Brook paid for it. Who dares to stop you? Shoot him. Seeing his master confronting the two Brahmin priests head on, the frightened Brook was sweating coldly. The religious traditions and secular beliefs formed over thousands of years have prevented these people from showing any disrespect to the Brahmins. Of course, their masters belong to the Kshatriya class and are not afraid of the Brahmins, but they are not like that. Chapter 256 Chapter 264 Face-to-face confrontation with the Brahmin. Seeing his master confronting two Brahmin priests head on, Brook, the human flesh mule, broke out in a cold sweat. The religious traditions and secular beliefs formed over thousands of years have prevented these people from showing any disrespect to the Brahmins. Of course, his master belongs to the Kshatriya class and is not afraid of the Brahmins, but they are not. Although Brook, the human flesh mule, is not allowed to enter the Indian temple for worship, but the status gap between the two sides is too big. Brook, the human flesh mule, is not afraid of going to hell or being beaten to death. But he is afraid that his behavior will implicate the Singh family. He dare not imagine what kind of pressure his master will face at that time. The pistol in his hand feels so heavy. He pushed through the crowd, came to his master, and whispered in the old man's ear, "Master, these two are Brahmin priests. If they offend you, I can follow them and assassinate them at night, or even chop them into pieces. But master, you cannot have a conflict with them in broad daylight, as this will be extremely disadvantageous to the pigeon family." Belsina knew that killing Elios Brook was for his own good, and for the good of his Singh family. But he really couldn't suppress his anger. These two old perverts actually stripped a little girl's clothes in front of so many people, like a beast, pointing and studying her, and arguing about the little girl's ownership. Don't they only have divine power in their hearts, without human feelings and joys and sorrows? Can't they see that this little girl is desperate? If it were normal, he would not have a dispute with the Brahmin priest, but now it is different. Others are afraid of you Brahmins, but I'm not. You Brahmins hold divine power, and I, the Kshatriya, hold secular power. Both sides are equal, and who dares to stand in a conflict with the Brahmin recorder? Who dares to stand on the opposite side of him? All people can only choose to turn a blind eye. You two top castes can fight and kill as you like. What does it have to do with us ordinary people? If a Vaishya caste confronts a Brahmin head on, without the order of the Brahmin priest, those people of other castes will definitely beat the Vaishya caste to death with sticks first. This is why everyone was so surprised when they saw Belsing and the two priests clashed. Silently retreating to separate the two parties in the conflict, they decisively chose to shut up. These two are both top wealthy families. They should not let the gods fight and harm mortals. Seeing the look of Brook who was persuading him, Belsing breathed a sigh of relief, and then said with a smile, "It's no big deal. I will take responsibility for anything. I have bought this girl. Whoever dares to snatch her from me, I will kill him." This is the second time he has said it. Just now, the two Brahmin priests were at a loss for what to do by Belsing's crazy behavior. Driven by decades of experience, the two men immediately looked at what the holy thread on Belsing's right hand was made of. It was linen. The two old priests looked at each other and shook their heads and smiled bitterly. If someone confronted them head on, the two old priests would even command the believers around them to beat the other party to death. However, Belsing's identity made the two old priests very cautious. This is not the feudal society of hundreds of years ago. Although these Brahmin priests still enjoy a lofty status, but the power they hold is really limited. They have become spiritual leaders, spiritual beliefs, and they are well fed and well fed. As long as they don't make trouble, it's fine. But if they want to return to the past, they can arbitrarily degrade a kennel caste to Dalit. But now they don't have that much power, not to mention that they are confronting them head on, and the Kshatriya caste is not weaker than them. The two sides are evenly matched. Although their side is 2:1, who knows the strength of the other damn colleague, the little boy opposite, and it's possible to withdraw the ladder halfway. If they fight one-on-one, they will definitely lose. They will put themselves in danger. The two of them are wary of each other, and it is impossible for them to form a unified alliance, to fight Belsing to the end. This is why Belsing dared to confront the two Brahmin priests head on the street. They are enemies in the same industry. They cannot form a unified alliance. Even if they practice in the same temple, these priests are divided into different factions. They are restraining each other, otherwise they would have unified the world long ago, and there would be no place for me, Kshatriya. The two old priests looked at each other, hoping that the other would come forward and confront this angry young man head on. He hid behind and took advantage of the situation. But the two of them were wary of each other, and no one would take the lead. Seeing that the two old perverts had lustful hearts but no courage, they treated ordinary people like the deadly king of hell. They became sissy when they treated themselves a high caste, and it really made people feel that they were not worthy of being their opponents. The two priests wilted, and then Belsing looked at the neighbors around Sinja town with a sharp look. What's the reaction? As soon as everyone saw Sing Sai sweeping over them, they immediately lowered their heads. Others didn't know who Sing was, but as neighbors, didn't they know? This kid is not easy to mess with. He is simply a fool. He does things without considering the consequences, and is very bold. The most important thing is that he has strength. They don't dare to compete, and they can't compete with the Singh family. Helping these two old perverts? It's a mess. The Singh family retaliated against them. Can these two Brahmin priests protect them? Obviously not. Besides, these two priests are outsiders. Although they are in different factions, they are their own people. But because of an outside priest, it's stupid for them to fight against the local tyrant in the town. These people are not only not stupid, but also very smart. They turned around and saw that others didn't notice and hurriedly slipped away. The originally busy street has now become very spacious. The two old priests looked at each other, curled their lips, and dispersed. They don't have the ability to fight this local snake. After seeing the two old men retreat, the human mule Brook breathed a sigh of relief. Belsina won a war that he believed was morally superior. This made Belsina feel comfortable from the inside out. He turned his head and looked at the little girl who had stood up from the ground. He touched her dirty head and said with a smile, "How old are you, little girl? What's your name? Where are your parents?" It would have been better if he hadn't asked. As soon as he asked, the little girl burst into tears. A light of despair flashed in her glasses. She knelt down to Belsina with a thud, kowtowed and cried, "Master, please buy me. If we don't have money to buy drinking water, my little sister at home will die of thirst. I sold myself without telling my parents. Otherwise our whole family would not be able to survive. Please, master, please help me and buy me." Chapter 257. Hassan's family falls into despair, running away secretly and selling herself. How much courage does it take? How much self-sacrifice does it take? For the sake of her family's survival, this little girl, who was only 6 or 7 years old, actually sold herself. This shocked Belsina, but he also felt very sympathetic to the little girl. If he were in the little girl's position, he would definitely try every possible way, even at the cost of sacrificing himself, to keep his family alive. She had to bear such a heavy burden at such a young age. It was pitiful, respectable, amiable, and admirable. How pure and filial a little girl's heart must be, like a diamond without a single flaw. Belsina was very moved, and quickly helped the little girl up from the cold ground, then squatted on the ground, and asked with a smile, "Little girl, don't be afraid to tell your brother. What's your name? How old are you this year? Where do you live? If you encounter any difficulties, tell your brother that he will try his best to help you." It may be that Belsina's sunshine-like smile infected the little girl, but she couldn't help but lighten up, and spoke intermittently. "Big brother, my name is Lily Hassan. I'm 7 years old. I live in Gayoji village in the south of the town. Our home was flooded. There is nothing left. My father is sick, and he lies in bed coughing every day. My mother's legs were broken by the fallen wooden stakes. My brother has now gone to work in a restaurant to exchange for some leftovers for everyone to eat. It's a pity that my brother can't support me and my sister alone. Now there is nothing at home." Seeing those big sisters being bought one by one, the money they get in exchange for helping the family get rid of difficulties, I also want to do the same. Silly girl, the flood has just passed for a few days. How can there be any restaurant opening? Even if there is, they are still renovating and purchasing. I don't know where your little brother got the food to trick you so that you can survive. But when I heard about Gayoji village, I felt a little familiar. It seems that there are several maids in the family who were bought from Gayoji village. I heard that it was also because of the flood that they came to work in the Singh family. Is this Gayoji village often threatened by floods? Why not make changes? I really don't understand why the government's work efficiency is so low. The little girl's father lies in bed and coughs every day. This is tuberculosis, which is contagious. The mother's legs were broken by a fallen tree stump. Of course, she will be disabled without money for treatment. The little girl is only 7 years old. Even if he has an older brother, he will never be more than 12 years old. It is said that children of poor people grow up early. It is true that, in order to let her two sisters survive, her little brother has suffered so much. I can't change the fate of thousands of girls, but I can change one enough to get some comfort in my heart. At least I have made changes and helped. So I took the little girl's hand and smiled as I walked towards the building materials. Don't worry, little girl, I will send someone to take your parents, sister, and brother to you, so that you can reunite your family. I will also cure your father and mother's injuries. Belsina was about to leave, but was grabbed by the little girl. Looking back, the little girl was pointing at the clothes in the mud with her finger, and said a little embarrassedly, "Big brother, this set of clothes is my best set of clothes. I can't bear to throw it away." If those big sisters hadn't said that I had to wear beautiful clothes to be bought, I wouldn't have worn my favorite and most beautiful set of clothes. What a good girl. Belsina didn't mind the dirtiness. He bent down and picked up the little girl's best set of clothes. In fact, the total value of this set of clothes would not exceed 100 rupees. But the little girl couldn't bear to part with it, so she should take it back. Belsina was about to pick up the clothes, but Brook of the human flesh took the lead and squatted on the ground, took the clothes in his hand, and said to Bel with a smile, "Master, just let me do it." Then the three of them walked through the crowd to Giant Cakesing and arranged the little girl to the wife of Almasha, who had never seen Cakesing cook. Let him give the little girl a good bath and then find a set of his daughter's clothes for the little girl to change into. Then he returned to the general manager's office, drank tea, and frowned while ordering Brook of the human flesh. Take someone to pick up the little girl's parents. Don't forget that she has a brother and a sister. Send her parents to the hospital for treatment. Tell the director of my hospital that, if these two people can't be cured, he should get out of Sinja town. Human flesh Luo Brook led his people away, but unexpectedly, Will, the manager of the building materials store, came to the office in a hurry. He found Belsina sitting on the sofa and asked worriedly without even drinking a sip of water, "Master, it's spread all over the town, now that you actually had a conflict with two Brahmin priests for a little girl. Is it worth it? Although these two are from the temple in our town, it's not a joke to offend the Brahmin priests. You are too impulsive. Others are afraid of these charlatans, but Belsina is not afraid, whether they play openly or secretly. I'm not afraid of these people, so is it a big deal to offend them?" So I smiled and said indifferently, "It's no big deal. Sit down and have some tea. Didn't you see how pitiful that little girl was just now? In public, they stripped the little girl's clothes like picking an animal. How could they have the heart to do that to an ordinary person of the same race as them? This problem has been unexplained for thousands of years, and no one can explain it." Will could only smile bitterly and shook his head, because what his master said was that the social status of both parties was originally equal. One held theocracy and the other held secular power. The two sides were fighting against each other, and it was still unknown who would win or lose. It was impossible for the other party to fight to the death with a top wealthy family just because of a little maid. Who has the time for that? Only Belsina would do this. After dealing with Will, Belsina smiled, then sighed and said, "I can save 1 or 10 people, but can I save thousands and millions? Now the whole southwestern part of India has been hit by floods. There are many people like the little girl. You know better than me whether the fate of these girls will be bitter or sweet, bright or dark in the future." Weir nodded with a lonely expression. "I know, but we can't change it, sir. Even if we spend all the property of the Singh family, how many people can you save? Save a few? Count a few. I can't control other places, but this situation happened under my nose. Can't I control it? Isn't it just a meal? It's not some kind of delicacies. I can afford it myself. Besides, there are so many bachelors in the family, and I should also consider them. Now is the best time to take action." So I said with a smile, "I can't control other things, but I can control the things under my nose. There are so many young men in our family. Each of them is so outstanding. I plan to assign 2 wives to each of them, while they are cheap now. How do you feel about including you? Are you happy?" Ha 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 ha. Chapter 258. Simple and crude but effective. When Will heard this, he was dumbfounded, looking at his boss and asked stupidly, "Master, do you really want to do this?" Belsina laughed at Will's look. He laughed so hard that tears came out, and then he said, "Why not? Although I don't have the ability to save thousands of girls in the world, I have the ability to solve the fate of most girls in Sinja town. Our young man is so outstanding. Marrying 2 more wives is no big deal. Although it's simple, it's effective, and the effect is very fast. With our family's living standard, the young men can support several wives. It's enough to support the people in my family. It's much better for your girls to fall into the fire pit. This is the case, but it's not done this way. It's a bit too rough. Without asking the opinions of the parties involved, each servant is stuffed with 2 wives. Is there such a thing? I heard that the family built a new house a few days ago, and now I have a new wife. It's different to be with Master Singh. This treatment is quite overbearing. Now you have a good job, money, house, and wife ready for you. What reason do you have not to be loyal to the Singer family? If you are treated like this, even if you have a rebellious mentality or are a traitor, it will be unforgivable. The punishment is to be skinned and set on fire." Will rubbed his stiff face with both hands to make himself clearer. He tilted his head and thought that, if this is the case, the girls will still have a better result. At least they can eat well, wear warm clothes, and live with dignity, instead of becoming puppets at the mercy of others. For these girls, life in the Singer family is equivalent to entering heaven. Then the two discussed the details. It was already 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon when they had lunch. Brooke, the human mule, brought Lila's 2 brothers and sister to the Singer family's building materials store and arranged them in a separate room. Let the 2 children take a bath and put on clean clothes. In the afternoon, he accompanied the 3 children to the central hospital to visit their parents. Seeing how their parents were treated and seeing that their parents had hope of recovery and health made the children regain their confidence. But I didn't expect that once I entered the hospital, it turned into a slaughterhouse. The corridors of the hospital were crowded with people of all kinds. Some people had their heads wrapped like mummies and blood on their bodies. It was obvious that they had been beaten by others after a hard robbery. Some people had diarrhea. They were skinny, but their stomachs were still swollen, like a toad. This was because they drank dirty water, which led to severe abdominal distension, diarrhea, and ascites. There were all kinds of people everywhere, and the hospital was already very busy. This was also because the hospital had also suffered from the baptism of floods. After it was cleaned up, the various medicines sealed in the medicine bottles could still be used. However, the loss of medical equipment was a bit serious, especially because doctors and nurses were too scarce, and many seriously ill patients did not receive good treatment. It was taken out of the hospital within 2 days and turned into a dead body. But these people were all ordinary people. The rich ones were also from the Vaishya caste, the real Brahmins and Kshatriyas. Did they need to wait in line in the hospital for treatment? With just one sentence, Belle's character broke the legs of the little girl's father who had tuberculosis. The mother arranged for the little girl to be treated in the hospital ward and ordered her to stop working if she couldn't be cured. This is the benefit brought by the privileged class. I'm really like those ordinary people. It is questionable whether Belle's character can survive until now, because the oldest boy in Hassan's family is no more than 12 years old. Although the little boy is young, he looks like a brother. He would rather go out to steal and break his legs to feed his 2 sisters and find food for his parents. It is because of the little boy's fearless spirit and shrewd mind that the family has survived the disaster to this day. The little boy is very smart, with a pair of big eyes that are particularly smart. He has an idea as soon as his eyes turn, and he knows how to be grateful. When he saw that his parents lying on the bed were effectively treated, and his father had received intravenous drug treatment to reduce the occurrence of coughing, the little boy was very moved. Although he didn't say anything, when he saw Belle Singer's back, a look of gratitude appeared in the little boy's eyes. He secretly swore in his heart that he must work under Master Singh in the future, must serve Master Singh, repay Master Singh for helping his family, and helping his sister escape the inhumane treatment. The little boy knew a lot of things at the age of 12, and he was already a half-grown man. Singh started to run the family business at the age of 14. Is 12 years old small? Not small, so this little guy named Cordo has become Belle Singh's little follower since then. His learning ability is quite outstanding, and he has also studied for 2 years and learned a few words. He quickly rose in the Singh family. He became Singh's indispensable assistant, and everything that Zinj told him to do was completed beautifully. He got along very well with his colleagues around him. If it weren't for the fact that he was not a family-born child, the old butler would have wanted Cordo, the little guy, to inherit his mantle and serve as the family's butler, but it couldn't be done because the Singh family's butler could only come from the Jamal family. This is the result of the two sides' loyal cooperation for hundreds of years. Any family can replace the Jamal family's loyalty to the Singh family. After seeing their parents receive effective treatment, and seeing how miserable those people who could not get treatment in the hospital corridor were, the little ones experienced another baptism of the soul, and it also let the 3 siblings know, without Belsina's help, how big a challenge their family would face. To be honest, after the disaster, only God knows who will be left alive in this family. The environment of the hospital is really terrible. After reassuring the 3 little ones, Belsina frowned. After the dean respectfully walked out of the hospital, on the way back, Will took his notebook and reported to Bell. Master, the manager of the family gold shop came yesterday, and the building materials store came to you, saying that the reconstruction of the gold shop should be arranged before the construction of the family's house. After all, our family's gold shop was also baptized by the flood. Although there was no loss of gold and jewelry, redecoration is inevitable. Belsina couldn't help but smile and said, the gold shop is Madame Lina's dowry, and I have handed it over to Madame Lina for management. All the proceeds are at the disposal of the ladies. It is their small treasury. I can't control it. Let the manager go to Lina. As long as Lina agrees, I will renovate his gold shop and see if I can buy the upper bunk next to it. After the renovation, build the largest gold and silver jewelry store in Sinja town. All shops and enterprises belonging to the Singh family should be the top ones. How can you make a lot of money by doing small things? Chapter 259. Going home. Will also agreed and said, Master, you are right. No matter what industry is formed, it will make money. But our town is poor, and after this catastrophe, it will take 35 years for it to recover. Some of the spare money is spent on repairing the collapsed houses. How can we buy those gold jewelry? Belsina smiled and lit a cigarette, then said, Well, you don't understand. The town has indeed suffered a disaster, and the lives of ordinary people are also very difficult. It must take 35 years to recover to the previous state, but that is the common people. Although the landlords in the mountains have suffered from the disaster, have they fallen into difficulties? There are still many rich people. As long as your jewelry store sells novel and beautiful jewelry, those ladies will definitely flock to it. Because women's money is the easiest to make. I believe you understand this, right? Ha ha ha. How can you not understand it? Which woman doesn't love beauty? All women with a little money in their families will cast their eyes on gold jewelry. This is a common problem among women, especially Indian women who love gold, and men are the same. It is not surprising that even beggars wandering on the street wear gold rings on their hands, because this is a custom and an aesthetic formed over thousands of years. The car swayed to the building materials store, and then Weir got out of the car, came to the back door, and said to his master with a smile, Master, say hello to the old housekeeper for me, and drive slowly when you go back. After saying goodbye to Weir, Belsing swayed back home. As soon as he entered the door, he saw that his family was sitting in the living room drinking tea and chatting. He didn't see his fat father-in-law. After asking his mother-in-law, he found out that his father-in-law had returned to Asher village. He personally presided over the post-disaster reconstruction work. Although his eldest brother-in-law was able to take charge of it alone, he really lacked experience. He had to rely on the old man's guidance to get through the difficulties, so only his mother-in-law was left at home, and there were a few women with children. It was very lively for the family to sit together and chat. After taking off his clothes in a dusty state, he felt relaxed and sat between his twin women. He took Praj's drink and asked with a smile, What are we having for dinner tonight? To be honest, the only thing I suffer from traveling so hard is my stomach. Look at how thin I am. Lina, who was standing next to him, would not give Belsine a face. She looked at Belsina shaking his fat body and kept shouting that he had lost weight and said with a smile, "It's good to be thin. It's more handsome to be thin. Why would you be so fat? You can't even dive with all that fat." Belsina laughed and said to his mother-in-law very aggrievedly, "Mom, did you see that? Lina always abuses me. I work so hard outside, but when I come home, I can't even eat enough delicious food. I can't live like this." Some people around him laughed at Belsina's childish behavior, but Lina rolled her eyes and ignored Belsina. Instead, she got up and went to the kitchen to instruct the Cantonese chef to prepare a Chinese cuisine that Belsina liked very much. It was a joke, but how could a wife treat her husband badly? The family sat together and chatted happily, especially Belsina's nephew, who was the son of his eldest brother-in-law. He crawled over with a smile and hugged Belsina's neck, shaking him and saying, "Uncle, did you bring me a gift? You promised me a transformer last time, but it hasn't been implemented yet. It's embarrassing to lie to a child." To be honest, Lina doted on her precious nephew to the extreme and even raised him as her own son. Whether it was food, clothing or daily necessities, they were all the best. She dressed the little guy like a little prince, and even Belsina couldn't do anything with this little guy, who let Lina back him up. "Last time, I promised the little guy to buy him a transformer, but it hasn't been implemented yet. Now trouble has come." The little guy is very good at complaining, and the consequences are also quite serious. Taking advantage of Lina's absence, she comforted the little guy and said, "Nee, my dear, your uncle has been too busy working in town these days and has not been able to take care of you. Don't worry, you will get transformers. This time, your uncle will buy you 2 sets. One is Optimus Prime and the other is Bumblebee. What do you think? But you have to give me some time to buy them for you, okay?" Although the little guy was spoiled and his food, clothing and daily necessities were extremely luxurious, Lina would not allow her nephew to develop those arrogant habits. Although he was young, he was very understanding. He smiled and nodded in Belkzin's arms. "Okay, uncle, you have to keep your word. If one Bumblebee or one Optimus Prime is missing, I will complain to my aunt that you cheated me." Finally, the little guy was sent away, and then he stood up and went back to his room to take a hot bath. After changing into clean clothes, he felt relaxed and went to the study and called the old butler Jamil over. The master and servant closed the door and discussed for more than an hour and finally discussed the details of buying the girl. The old housekeeper also agreed with Belsina's doing this. First, it gave those girls who really couldn't survive a hope of survival. Let them completely get rid of the dark fate. At least marrying a servant of the Belsina family is much better than being a prostitute. The second point can also increase the centripetal force of the family. Belsina, the master, did a very good job. Not only was the house prepared, but everyone had to prepare 2 wives. If you take a high salary and betray your family, then this person's conscience is eaten by a dog, and he is black at all. This can only be done in India. Can you do such a thing in other places? This is also the reason why most of the Singh family's industries are in the business of building materials. Produce those building materials at the lowest cost price and go out to buy them all. Belsina will not be so generous and has no strength to build houses for everyone. There is no other cost for the building materials produced by themselves except for some labor costs, water and electricity costs. This matter should be done sooner rather than later. If it is too late, all the beautiful ones will be picked up by others, and the remaining ugly ones will be brought back to be wives for these male servants. Do you want these servants or not? Isn't this a good intention, but a bad thing? Singer, who is against beauty and not beauty, will not be so stupid to do it. So it is better to start early and let the old butler take charge of it personally. In addition, Bel's personality is also like the old butler's detailed. He said another plan of his, which is to take in some male orphans, preferably under 10 years old, then hand them over to the old butler to train these orphans personally. When they grow up to 15 years old, they can become an indispensable part of the family. They are loyal to the Singer family. After all, they have been brainwashed since childhood to cultivate absolute loyalty. In the future, the family will grow bigger and bigger, and there are too many places to use people. The existing number of servants is not enough to allocate. It is stretched to the limit and the number should be increased. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 260, Samples produced by the Plastic Products Factory. After staying at home for 5 days, Belsina hurried to the town, and then took Will, and ran to the Singer Industrial Park. After a month of construction, the plastic products factory built by the Singer family at a high price was successfully debugged and samples have been produced. The plastic products factory is related to the foundation of the Singer family, and it cannot be sloppy. Although the factory building has been built, it has not been further decorated. It is all red bricks and cement, and the windows are all ventilated. The machine was successfully installed and tested under the debugging of the German workers, and the first batch of samples was produced today. This is a good day for a good start. I'm fortunate to have this boss to watch the first batch of samples on the spot. At 10 o'clock in the morning, all the leaders of the group were in place, and the workers from other factories who were watching the excitement also came around. After detailed debugging, the German engineer captain, after instructions, got Belsina's consent. Then the first batch of raw materials was poured into the machine for heating and film blowing. The first batch of products produced was plastic tabloir, and plastic tabloir is not disposable, but permanent tabloir products, including plastic plates, plastic bowls, plastic cups, and plastic kettles. All of them are red. After all, Indians like bright colors, and red and yellow are their favorites. With the normal operation of the machine, the temperature in the entire factory soars. Because the plastic particles need to be heated before they can become liquid, and then poured into the mold for squeezing, so that a plastic plate can be formed. To be honest, the plastic products produced in this way will be found to be very large, and a pungent smell can be smelled in the field. These pungent smells are toxic and harmful substances. Over time, it will definitely have an impact on the body, but now it can't be taken care of so much. If you can't even eat enough, how can you care about your body? So the workers don't care, and now it's 2001. Where are those environmental protection systems? After being heated by the machine, the melted plastic particles come to the film blowing stage, and a small piece of liquid plastic is blown into the mold through the connection of the pipe. In less than a second, the plastic plate in the mold has been formed, and then after 30 seconds of cooling, the film is opened. A red plastic plate was formally formed, with a very smooth surface and still hot. The worker took the plastic plate off the mold wearing gloves. After removing a small piece of plastic joint at the back of the plate and a slight polish, a plastic plate was formally formed. The thickness of the plate exceeded 5 mm, and it made a banging sound when knocked. The hardness and strength reached the perfect standard. In addition, the surface was smooth, the color was bright red, corrosion resistant and high temperature resistant, and it was not afraid of falling or collision. It is much more durable than those white porcelain plates, but as the time of use increases, the toxic and harmful substances in it will slowly evaporate, which is not so good for the body. However, it is better in terms of quality, low price, and durability. Belsina took the plate in his hand and observed it carefully. It was perfect. The surface is very smooth, and the subtle parts of the face can be illuminated. The diameter of the plate exceeds 20 cm and the depth is 2 cm. The edges are very smooth. By modifying the shape of the film, triangular, square, or even wavy edges can also be produced. It only depends on what kind of plates the customer needs. After the plates are produced, red plastic bowls will be produced, and then red plastic water cups will be produced. There are 200 products in total. Only then will the machine stop working, and the 200 products will be placed in front of everyone. The production process has not exceeded half an hour, and the work efficiency is not low. The products produced are very perfect, which can fully meet the standards required by the market, and even better. The production cost of such plastic plates does not exceed 10 rupees, but the selling price reaches 50 to 100 rupees. It is equivalent to less than 10 yuan in RMB. Because the plastic bowl is small in size, the selling price is slightly cheaper, and the overall profit reaches 60%. How much the second-hand dealers sell each is their business. The wholesale price is set at 70 rupees. The price is very cheap, and it will definitely sell well. After seeing this batch of perfect test products, the people present began to cheer loudly. Especially the workers in the plastic factory. They were excited and shouted. To be honest, if the plastic factory produces the most perfect plastic products, it can find a market. Then they increased production and their wages were all piecework wages. How much money a person earned was determined by how many plastic houses he made in a day. How could they not be happy? German machines are good, strong, durable and simple in structure. Bursina ordered on the spot that the machines that had been shut down should be restarted. 100 pieces of each plastic tabler in different colors and shapes were produced as exhibits for their customers to choose what kind of products they like and then take orders for production. The plastic tabler reached perfection, and other plastic product machines were also debugged and samples were planned to be produced. Let your boss watch. For example, a machine that produces plastic barrels produces 2 halves of plastic barrels and then heats and bonds them together in the middle. After polishing, a plastic barrel that can hold 5 kilograms of liquid was produced, and it can be stored after the lid is put on. In addition to the 5 kilogram specification, there are also several specifications of 10 kilograms, 25 kilograms and 50 kilograms. Whether these plastic barrels are used to hold water, other liquids, or cooking oil, they are perfect containers. It is easy to carry, strong and durable, and most importantly, it is cheap. In addition to these, it can also be used to make plastic bags, plastic sheets, and even plastic sheets used in plastic greenhouses. Moreover, the production cost is very low, and the profit margin of the selling price is more than 50%. Every time the most perfect product is produced, it has been unanimously affirmed by the senior members of the Singh family. Yes, the machine is expensive, but the products produced are indeed good and the appearance is quite good. The quality is particularly strong. There are 20 machines debugged today, which can only produce less than 150 kinds of plastic products. But it is enough to form a scale of an exhibition hall for plastic products. As time goes by, there will be more and more debugged machines, and the variety of products produced will also increase, reaching a total of more than 1,000 kinds. Of course, it is impossible for each of the more than 1,000 kinds of plastic products to be produced at full power. There are best-selling products and unsellable products. It's just that these products are produced to form an exhibition hall for plastic products, allowing those customers to choose freely and then place orders for production. Without orders, no plastic products will be produced. But they all cost money. Why produce them if they can't be sold? When he held these perfect plastic products in his hands, Belsina was so excited that he almost cried. He stayed in the factory of the plastic products company for a whole day, waiting for the arrival of the new products. Chapter 261, Building an Exhibition Hall. This day, Belsina was very excited. Every few minutes, a new plastic product was produced. Of course, there will be a lot of scrap rates in the production process, which is indispensable, no matter what kind of business you are in. No matter what kind of product is produced, it is impossible to make the product pass 100% smoothly, and there will definitely be scrap rates. Belsina determined that the scrap rate was 1%, but it may be because the machine was newly debugged. So the scrap rate reached 3.5%. After running in, the scrap rate can be controlled at about 1%, which has reached the perfect level. It is a bit too much to ask for higher requirements. When it got dark, the entire plastic products company's factory was quiet, and everyone who walked out of the factory was sweating. To be honest, the temperature in the room was too high, almost reaching about 32 degrees, and there was a pungent smell everywhere. If it weren't for waiting to see with their own eyes how plastic products are produced, Belsina would never step into the factory. He stayed there for a day and felt dizzy. He went back to the building materials store to repair himself. After a night of study, he recovered. Then he drove to the industrial park and entered his president's office. Then he invited all the leaders to come over and discuss to build a plastic products exhibition hall for customers to choose products. This exhibition hall is related to the strength of the Singh family. If it is not beautiful and elegant, it will give people the illusion that the Singh family is just average, so it must be built tall and beautiful. But in this way, the investment will increase exponentially, but this is a matter of face. It is related to the sales of products, and cannot be sloppy. If there is no money, you have to push it up. What's more, Bell Senior's interest-free loan of $2 million has been issued to him, and now there is more than 1.8 million left. In addition, the low-interest loan of rupees will be raised soon. Now there is no shortage of money, so Bell Senior plans to do it in one step. Build a big one. The number of plastic products on display should exceed 1,500 commonly used products. No one has any objection to this. There is no output without investment. The more money invested now, the greater the benefits in the future. But what kind of exhibition hall should be built? Everyone was in trouble and began to brainstorm. Some people's opinions were really unreliable. They even planned to build a crystal palace. All the exterior walls of the exhibition hall are made of tempered glass to create a modern exhibition hall. To be honest, although the Singh family is not short of money, they don't have so much money to waste on the exhibition hall. There are also more reliable opinions, such as Marbury's proposal of a very good plan. That is because the mine contracted by the Singh family has reached 500 square kilometers. How big is this area? Equivalent to the total area of a small European country. The mountains are all dense primeval forests. The wood reserves inside can be said to be amazing. There are many wild animals, and even wild elephants and tigers. Anyway, their own territory is very large and there are many trees, so it is better to cut down some trees. Then build a two-story exhibition hall with a pure wooden structure. It looks very beautiful and high-end, but the raw materials are all produced by themselves, and it doesn't cost much. This opinion is quite pertinent. The wood needed to build a two-story exhibition hall with an area of 10,000 square meters is only tens of thousands of cubic meters of wood. The area that needs to be cut down is less than 1 square kilometer. Compared with the natural resources in your hands, it is just a drop in the bucket. It is both economical and beautiful. Why not do it? Bell supports this, but it is not an easy job to build an exhibition hall with wood. The general construction team simply does not have the ability to undertake this project, so it must go to big cities such as Mumbai or Delhi to invite professionals to build and design the exhibition hall. Since it is the opinion put forward by Vice President Marbury, there is no doubt that Marbury will take on this task. You can't let the boss Bell run another long distance. Marbury went to these big cities to find professional construction companies to build exhibition halls. The so-called one thing does not bother two masters. Since Marbury had already decided to go on a business trip, he decided to do something else that would affect the life and death of the company. That was to recruit sales staff for the product factory, preferably college students, although these college students received higher salaries and commissions. However, his knowledge and vision helped him to complete the sales task well. The more products he sold, the more money he made. But he also had to make money, right? This was a win-win situation, so why not do it? So Bell Senior assigned Marbury another task that he had to complete, which was to recruit a sales team of 30 college students. They were to find sales channels for the entire Zinch Group's products, with the main products being plastic products. Although it was recruiting sales staff, the educational background needed to be within the range of college students, but how much fixed salary you gave them needed to be discussed. If it was too little, they would not want to work, and if it was too much, they would suffer a loss. After much discussion, everyone felt that 5,000 rupees per month was more appropriate. This was just the basic salary, and living expenses would be given, whether the products were sold or not. The biggest income for sales staff came from commissions. Bell Senior set a commission of 5%, which means that, no matter how big a customer you find, even if you sell 10 million plates every month, I will give you a 5% commission. If you sell 10 plates, I will also give you a 5% commission. This can motivate college students to move forward bravely and open up sales channels for the entire Singh family plastic factory. Although this 5% commission is relatively small, it is a small profit but quick turnover. There is no large plastic product company in India that has invested in production. The entire Indian market is a blank period. Now is the best time to occupy the top of the mountain. If other plastic product factories emerge like mushrooms after rain in a few years, there will be more wolves and less meat. If you want to occupy the market, it will cost a lot. Now is a blank period. The golden sales stage is to lay out the entire sales network. It won't be long before the Singh family grows into a behemoth. At that time, it will not be so easy for anyone to move the Singh family. I didn't expect that I would be carrying to such important tasks on a business trip. This made Marbury laugh and cry. Of course, Belsinger couldn't mistreat his deputy, let alone the vice president of his group. If you want the horse to run well, you have to feed it grass, so all the expenses for this business trip will be borne by the Singh family. The standard is that the hotel is a 3-star restaurant, and the 3-star hotel has special expenses of more than 100,000 rupees. This 100,000 rupees is equivalent to pocket money. What does Marbury like? Buy something? Then find the old butler to reimburse when you come back. In fact, the words are quite open and make people feel relieved, but the stingy look of the old butler really makes people feel speechless. You have to repeatedly investigate robbers' phone bills over 100 yuan. You have to make it clear what the money is used for, and then you will be reimbursed for the 100 rupees. If you want to have a good time, how much money will it cost? Can the old butler reimburse it? So Marbury knows. Belsinger's words are beautiful, but he can't do that, and it is impossible for him to spend public funds at will. Chapter 262, Partner Shock. Marbury received 2 super tasks and felt that his body was under double the burden, and he could not live up to his boss's trust in him. So he drove back to his residence that night and took his luggage the next morning to start his business trip. After a night of sleep, Belsinger was refreshed. When he got up, he brushed his teeth and washed his face and called his ally Akshu while eating breakfast. Now as the chief of police, Axe can be said to be busy, because when the flood came, the entire police station seemed to disappear in an instant. The military and police who should have been on the front line disappeared, causing the people to suffer such heavy losses, although the people dared not to speak out. But the impression of the police station was extremely bad, and he, the chief of the police station, was of course the first to bear the brunt. Although after the flood, the police station launched a full-scale disaster relief and maintenance of order. But what's the use? Will the hungry people still care about the baton in your hand? So the public security situation in the entire town of Sinjar is getting worse and worse. Robbery, rape, and even murders happen every day. These hungry victims want to snatch food from others when they see it. If they don't give it to the two sides, conflicts will break out. These are life-saving food. If they let others snatch it away, they will starve to death. What good will it be if the two sides fight? Not to mention the police. Even the army can't control the order, so they are busy these days. After receiving a call from Belsinger, Kashu rubbed his painful temple and said with a wry smile, "How can my master Singh have time to call me? Although I know that your factory is relatively lightly affected by the disaster, the reconstruction work cannot be completed so quickly. Tell me what you want to talk to me about." Belsinger certainly knows what the situation is in the town. As the chief of the police station, Axe is now living a worse life than a dog, so he laughed and said, "I know you've been in a bad mood these past 2 days, but I have good news that you'll definitely jump up when you hear it. The plastic production line we are working on has been debugged, and how about the first batch of samples that have been produced? Come over and change your mind and take a look at our plan to make a fortune." This was the best news Axe had heard in more than a month, and he suddenly felt that his headache, waist pain, and leg cramps were gone, and his eyes were shining with gold, and he said with a smile, "This is good news. Of course I have to go and see it as soon as possible. Don't worry, I will definitely be at Singer Industrial Park in an hour. Take a look at our golden egg laying chicken and see if the golden eggs produced meet the standards." After hanging up the phone, Axe tidied up his neat police chief uniform and assigned his work to his deputy. Then he got on a special car and ran to Singer Industrial Park. It was said to be an hour, but it felt like it was only 20 minutes. When he arrived at the industrial park, Belsinger hadn't arrived yet. Everyone knew the chief of the town, and they also knew that the Singer family was a partner and the two sides were allies. So Ivan, who stayed in the Singer Industrial Park, happily received Director Axe. As soon as he sat down to drink tea in the office, Belsinger arrived. After the two sides met, they saw that Axe's eyes were red, and he looked very bad. He couldn't help laughing. "You are crazy. You are in trouble this time. You run away when you encounter danger. You leave the people behind. Then will I let you live well." Of course, Axe's condition is already miserable enough, and Belsinger dare not add fuel to the fire. He laughed and hugged the other party, and then sat down to drink tea. At this time, Axe said anxiously and impatiently, "Singer, what is the relationship between us? Forget about drinking tea and smoking. Let me see the products we produce. If the quality is good and the price is cheap, they will definitely flock to it. Then we will make a fortune." No wonder he is so anxious. To be honest, although Axe is the eldest son of the family, he is also the successor that the family tries to cultivate. But his younger brothers are not mediocre. They are eyeing his position from behind and want to replace him. If Axe falls into a major mistake crisis, his position will be in jeopardy. Who would be willing to give up the future leader of the family? He was the one who facilitated the cooperation with the Singh family. Whether he could make a lot of profits was related to his family's status. How could he not be anxious? The sooner he saw it, the sooner he would feel at ease. Belsinger also understood him very well. The three of them came to the room where the samples were placed, talking and laughing. When Axe saw the radiant red menu that could be used as a mirror, he knocked and hit the plate to see the strength of the plate. All the requirements have been met in the most perfect state. Such menus are the most popular. After all, Indians eat with their hands and rarely use tools such as chopsticks and spoons. Everyone took the plate and put rice and stewed vegetables on it, grabbed it in their hands, and put it in their mouths to eat. Therefore, the plate is one of the most important dining utensils. Such plastic plates are much better than those made of pottery, although it is not as precious as porcelain. Who can afford such precious porcelain for ordinary people? Plastic plates are cheap and durable, and they are the best household appliances. They will definitely have no problem selling. When Axe heard that the cost of producing such a plastic plate was no more than 10 rupees, his eyes lit up. This is all money. The profit can reach 60% or even higher. This is the goose that lays golden eggs. If you quickly occupy the blank market and build a sales network, how can you make less money? It was he who helped to connect his family with the Singh family. When the time comes, he will be the first hero and further consolidate his position as the eldest son of his family. He was so happy. This was the happiest day Axe had in more than a month. He was so excited that he was incoherent holding these plastic plates, and then he looked at other samples, such as plastic bowls and plastic cups. After more than an hour, he walked out of the storage room with a frown on his face while walking to the office. Character. Now that a perfect product has been produced, shouldn't you set up a sales team to sell it? This will activate the funds and we can have income. Bell character rolled his eyes and said with a smile, "You think I'm stupid? I don't know how to make money, but good salespeople need training and professional cultural knowledge. Can ordinary people do it? So I asked my vice president, Marbury, to go to Mumbai to recruit salespeople. The minimum requirement is a college degree. After a short period of training, they can quickly get started. The price I offer is not low. I guarantee that these college students will make a lot of money. Automatically increase your workload. All we have to do is to produce and then build a pure wooden exhibition hall. Let customers see our good products. Why are you in such a hurry? Don't we have to do it step by step?" Chapter 263, Grand Celebration 1. You are not in a hurry. The entire Singh family is in your hands. Of course you are not in a hurry. Seeing me, the eldest son of a political family, is so glorious. In fact, who knows how better I am? Of course, Axe can't tell Belsinger what's in his heart. The two sides are allies, but they can't let the other side know too much about their background. So Axe just smiled bitterly and shook his head without saying much. After returning to the office, after both sides sat down, Belsinger explained his plan in detail to his ally Axe. No matter what you do, you can't be in a hurry. You can only do it step by step. Now the most urgent task is to complete the plastic production workshop. At least brush the frosted cement with oil and install windows and doors. The second step is to build a pure wooden exhibition hall and then train the sales staff at the same time. After solving these two things, the factory can produce at full capacity. At this time, Axe suddenly thought of something and said excitedly, "Singer, it's not that troublesome. I have a suggestion for you. There are so many collapsed houses in the whole town of Sinja. Everyone uses some garbage to build a simple shed to live in. You can produce some thicker black plastic sheets and add some rainproof covers to these simple tents. You can quickly sell them in the town and the surrounding areas to get some funds, help the victims, and make money. Isn't it a good thing to kill two birds with one stone?" Belsinger looked at Axe with great contempt. This guy's brain is crazy when he is an official. How much money do the victims living in the shabby tents have? If there is money, all go to buy food. Who has money to buy plastic sheets to build tents? Don't you say that the raw materials of plastic products are free to give them? Machine wear and tear is not money. Can the cost be recovered? I'm a businessman, not a god. What I need is to make money, not a good reputation. Of course, if I'm not short of money, I will do some good deeds. Now is not the time. So Belsinger shook his head and laughed. Axe's unrealistic idea would drag him down if he got deeper and deeper into it, so he said with a smile, "Axe, do you have any common sense? If the disaster victims have money to buy rainproof plastic sheets, why do they have to go around picking up garbage? Where can I buy them? Should I give them the black plastic sheets I produced? So that's how it is." No wonder Belsinger looked at him with such contempt. He took it for granted and grafted his idea of being an official onto Belsinger. He is a businessman, not a philanthropist. What he needs is a return and profit, not a return of a good reputation. Reputation can be eaten. Belsinger feeds so many workers. The products he produces are given away for charity. If he doesn't get a return, how can he afford to feed the workers and buy raw materials? Although the idea is good, it can't be realized. Of course, it can only be realized in the near future. If Belsinger has assets of hundreds of millions of dollars, he can do some charity, but now is not the time. The two sides talked about some irrelevant topics. After lunch at the industrial park, Axe had to return to his seat with nails and continue to deal with some criminal cases. The other party was in a state of panic, but it had nothing to do with Belsinger. In recent days, Singh has been in a very good mood. All the machines have been debugged in place, and the factory has been further renovated. Doors and windows have been installed, and white paint has been painted. Even the floor of the factory has been painted over and over again with green paint. The resting place for office workers, toilets and supporting facilities have also been thoroughly implemented, and the entire plastic production factory has been put on the right track. The stockpiling of raw materials has also reached the ideal scale. What makes Belsinger most happy is that he has spent a lot of money to help the workers build houses that have been completed. After the house was built, the workers moved in with their families and felt that the garden house was much better than their own mud houses. At least it is strong and beautiful. So when the workers' village was completed on this day, the village chief brought some elderly people in the village to the industrial park and personally invited Belsinger to participate in the celebration. Although these workers were not affected much by the disaster, they did not have much spare money, let alone buy anything good. The only thing Bel could do was to invite Master Singh to preside over the village completion ceremony. Everyone ate and drank together to have fun. Belsinger had nothing else to do, so he participated. He took all the leaders of the entire factory to participate in the village completion ceremony. A colorful tent was built in the square in the center of the village to block the sun and occasional rain. Then the whole village, regardless of gender, age or young, dressed up to attend the event. Belsinger also gave a speech to encourage everyone that their lives would get better and better in the future. As long as they follow the Singh family, they will not suffer any grievances. Everyone believes this. Which boss builds a house for you and doesn't believe it? Master Singh gave a speech to encourage everyone, and then the celebration officially began. To be honest, the Indian people are good at singing and dancing, which is indeed true. Even in this small village, the older people play musical instruments well, and the young girls practice dancing since childhood. Regardless of gender, age or young, they can show off some unique skills. Anyway, isn't it fun to celebrate? Everyone picked up their musical instruments, danced hip hop, and sang songs. The women in the village, who were good at cooking, got together. After a busy day of slaughtering pigs and sheep and making delicious food, Belsina went back to the general manager's office of the building materials store after drinking too much and fell asleep on the bed. The next day, before he woke up, he heard someone knocking on the door. He got up with great difficulty and opened the door. It turned out to be the old butler Jamal. When the old butler saw Bel's red eyes, he knew that the master must have drunk too much yesterday. While supporting his young master, he said blamingly, "Master, I've heard that you drank a lot yesterday when you participated in the completion ceremony of the workers' village. But what good wine can the master and his family have? It's all low quality wine. Drinking too much will hurt your body." Belsina said with a wry smile, while sitting on the bed smoking. "What good wine do they have? Of course I know that drinking these inferior wines will make you drunk. Maute is comfortable, but can I afford to feed those big-bellied men with Maute? How much stock do we have at home? What did the old housekeeper come to town to find me for so early in the morning? Don't tell me that our new home and all the houses in the valley have been built, so let me participate in the event." Seeing Belsina's surprised look, the old housekeeper shook his head and smiled bitterly. "Master, you guessed it right. The houses in our village have been built and everyone has moved in. Everyone is very grateful for your generosity. You have fulfilled your promise. Everyone plans to invite you to participate in the opening ceremony. Oh my god, I'm still drinking. If I drink more, I will get alcoholic liver disease. But I participated in the opening ceremony of my own workers' village. Could it be that the generations of servants in my family invited me to return to the village to participate in the event, and I can't go? I can't be partial." Chapter 264. Grand Celebration 2. Belsina saw the old housekeeper and said this. Then he lay down on the bed with a cry, rolling and kicking his hands and feet and shouting, "Is it over yet? Why are there so many celebrations? I'm in the town to work, not to play. Why do these people have to celebrate every little thing? They have nothing to do. India is a very strange country. Don't be surprised by any strange things happening here. Take Hinduism for example. The gods that India believes in are more than 330 million gods mean that every two people can have their own belief in a god. There are many rules and festivals. Of course, the biggest ones are 4 festivals, National Day and Holi. Other small festivals can be said to be countless. You can celebrate 2 or 3 every day. It can be said that every day is a festival. Every little thing likes to bring people together, and everyone drinks and celebrates, singing and dancing. What's more, it is such a big thing as the completion of the house. Of course, it should be celebrated to indirectly thank the generous master. But I really couldn't stand it. But then again, even if Belsina didn't want to, he had to go. Why is this a servant of his family for generations, who has lived with his Singer family for more than 150 years? They used to be slaves of the Singer family, and they were loyal to their family. Didn't you see the family airport battle? These people fought to death with knives and guns, just for their Singer family, just for their master. Although I, as a master, was also good to them, of course it was quite good. Everyone wanted to invite their master back to celebrate as soon as the house was completed. It is understandable that I should thank the master, but I'm busy with work now, so I don't have time to go back. If I don't go back, I will be sorry for these loyal servants who follow me. Fortunately, it is still relatively relaxed recently. Before Marbury comes back, my work can be handed over to others. There is also a certain amount of time to relax. Although I don't want to, I can only bite the bullet while washing my face and brushing my teeth, then have breakfast and accompany the old housekeeper back home. As soon as we entered the valley, we saw a bustling crowd of people, all dressed very beautifully, and took out their best clothes and most beautiful jewelry. Everyone, young and old, had a smile on their face. Both sides of the central street were full of garden houses. Although the exterior had not been painted yet, all of them were the color of black cement. But painting is not a big deal for Indians who like bright colors. Even a 3-wheeled vehicle can be painted colorfully, which makes it look very beautiful, let alone a house. This is why you can see those rickshaws and 3-wheeled trucks painted colorfully in the streets and alleys of India, and some of them are hung with garlands. This is why Indians like colors. Seeing their master's car appear in the valley, all the people on both sides of the road, regardless of gender or age, bowed and greeted. Everyone was really happy. Seeing the smiling faces of the villagers, Belsing felt much better. He rolled down the window and greeted the people he knew, and then staggered back to his home. As soon as I entered the door, I saw some women in the house choosing clothes and dressing up. They saw that the male owner of the house had returned. Everyone focused all their attention on Belsina. Lina had already prepared a brand new golden robe. After taking a bath, she put on this good dress and dressed up very energetically. Then he brought his wife, followed by several other women, led his pet Simba, and followed by male and female servants, and came to the central square in the center of the village. In the past, the central square of the village was a vacant land with an area of more than 200 square meters. This time, the whole village was rebuilt, and the central square was replanned into a square central square. There is a rostrum facing north and south. The whole square is covered with cement ground, and then some flowers, plants, and trees are planted. The trees are relatively old, with a diameter of 20 to 30 centimeters and lush branches and leaves, which can cover the entire central square. The rostrum is 5 meters long and 3 meters wide. It is the place where Master Belsina was built to issue orders. Today, the rostrum was completely covered with red carpets, with tables and chairs placed on it, and even a microphone was plugged in extravagantly. Carpets were laid all around the square, and men and women sat around it, 1 meter apart in family units. Everyone saw that everyone's master, Master Singh, brought his wife and all the servants in the family to attend the event. Feeling very proud, the applause never stopped as soon as the master appeared, and all kinds of cheers and shouts came together. They came to the rostrum and sat down. Then, as the commander-in-chief of this celebration, the old butler Jamil took the lead in holding the microphone and standing in front of the rostrum to speak to all the villagers. In fact, Indians also have very unique ways of speaking. They are very humorous when they speak, making everyone laugh. Then I explained all the contents of today's celebration in detail to everyone. What is the content? In addition to singing, dancing, eating, and drinking, there is nothing else. It is worth mentioning that a lot of good things are prepared for the children. This was prepared by Lina and a few women, and by the way, they won people's hearts. In addition to a small ornament, the children's rare fresh milk ice cream was open for supply. The ice creams are made from the cattle in the village that are favored by the royal family. They are pure natural green food, which is very beneficial to health. They are cool, sweet and sour and very delicious. After the old housekeeper finished speaking, he asked Belsing to speak. Bel had the experience of yesterday, and the content of his speech was very short. It is to encourage everyone to work hard around the Singh family. Tomorrow will be better. As the scale of the Singh family's factory expands, their direct subordinates will get a good development. Everyone agrees with this point, because more than 30% of the men in the village are in the Singh Industrial Park, and they are officials in various factories. The highest official is Weir, one of the giants of the Singh Industrial Group, and the rest are small squad leaders and group leaders. But they are more or less the same head, earning more wages than workers, and the treatment is also very good. This is also the reason why everyone loves Master Singh so much. The master really has a place for these villagers in his heart. Of course, the first to provide benefits to their family is the park people, who are the foundation of their success. After the speech, the music started playing, and everyone, young and old, sang and danced to their heart's content. But the weather was not good, and it started to rain after more than an hour. As a last resort, everyone had to move to the Singh family's castle to continue celebrating. Chapter 265, Homemade Wine to Liven Up the Fun. After a dance written, directed and performed by the villagers, the atmosphere reached a climax. Everyone sat together, eating and drinking. They began to talk about a better tomorrow. As long as the Singh family did not decline, their lives would get better and better. They no longer had to be poor and hard-pressed like before, with no food or drink, or even clothes. All these changes were brought about by sitting among a bunch of beauties. The young man who was eating, drinking, and laughing. At this time, the human mule Brook came to the underground wine cellar with a few people. Seeing the oak barrels neatly placed on the wine rack, a timid male servant next to him trembled, and said to the human mule Brook, Brooke, when Jamal made these wines, he stipulated that they could only be drunk after half a year. Now we have taken them out for 20 days, and we don't know if they will work. Brooke, the human mule, waved his hand and said with a smile, "You are worrying about nothing. You don't know that the master drank a lot of cheap wine yesterday. Who can bear to drink it continuously? It just so happens that our home-brewed wine is ripe. Let the master taste it." At this time, another cautious servant beside him grabbed Brooke, the human Luo, who was about to turn on the tap and take the wine, and frowned and said, "But the wine is not ripe and not good to drink. What's the point of taking it out? What if there are toxins deposited in it? Wouldn't it kill our master?" Brooke laughed and patted the shoulders of the two people like a magic trick. He took out a small high-footed glass from his trouser pocket, shook it in front of the two people, and said with a smile, "So I plan to taste it first. If it tastes good, we'll take it out. If it doesn't taste good, we can just put it in the wine cellar for aging. Why are you talking so much nonsense? Move over, I want to drink." At this time, regardless of everyone's obstruction, he gently turned on the tap on the side of the oak barrel, and then heard a gurgling sound. The tap instantly flowed out blood-red wine. When the wine flowed into the decanter, the tap was turned off. Then the bottle was placed under the light, shaken and looked at it. The hanging cup was in very good condition. A strong grape aroma came to the face, and everyone couldn't help swallowing their saliva. It was so fragrant. No one expected that the newly brewed wine could have such a strong aroma. Mixed with some sweetness, the aroma became more and more intense as the wine swayed in the bottle. At this time, Brooke, the human flesh Luo, couldn't wait. "Just swallow your saliva, fill the small cup, and then put it under your nose and smell it gently." Wow. With his eyes closed, Brooke felt like he was in a sea of grapes, with a strong aroma that lingered for a long time. Then he opened his eyes and tasted it carefully with his mouth. The taste lingered on the tip of his tongue for a few circles before swallowing it down. It was sour and astringent at first, then sweet. The aroma circled back and forth in his throat. When he opened his mouth, the air and the wine on the tip of his tongue collided with each other. The aroma went all the way from his mouth to the depths of his mind. It was really fragrant. Brooke, who was a human flesh Luo, followed Bayazins around the country. He hadn't tasted anything for a long time. Brooke had never tasted wine like this made at home. If it was aged for more than 3 years, how strong would the aroma of such a homemade wine be? It was not much worse than the wines produced by those famous French wineries. Good wine is really good wine. After Brooke drank the red wine in the glass, he tasted it with his tongue and laughed. "You idiots, the wine has been brewed. Is there no one watching? It has a strong aroma, although it tastes a bit bitter. But the taste of wild grapes is stronger than those precious wines, and it tastes slightly sweet when you open your mouth. And the fragrance surrounds and rushes straight into your mind. It is a rare good wine. The master should be the first to taste it." Then the human flesh Luo Brooke quickly directed the several companions who followed him to fill up all the wine bottles they brought. Then he covered the lids and carried 20 bottles of wine, and then he staggered out of the wine cellar. At this time, the atmosphere outside reached a climax. Several people carried the bottles to Belsina, which made Belsina wonder where these guys got these wines. Picking up a bottle and taking a look, wow, there is not even a trademark. So he looked at the human flesh and asked in confusion, "Brooke, where did you get these fake wines? Are you planning to let me drink them? How can I drink this wine without even a label?" The human mule Brooke laughed and said, "Master, this is our home-brewed wild mountain wine, and it has just matured, and the taste is very strong. It is not much worse than those precious wines produced in France. This is not mature yet. Let the master taste it first. If you want to get a label, you have to design it yourself. Doesn't home-brewed wine mature after half a year? I didn't expect it to be drinkable so soon, since it is home-brewed wine. Of course, I have to taste it carefully. What is the taste like? Taste what the difference is between wild grapes and those domesticated grapes." When the cork on the wine was pulled out, the people around couldn't help but sniff. "It smells really good. And it is also a very strong fruity aroma, just like you are in a wild vineyard, surrounded by grapes." The aroma is the same. When the wine is poured into the goblet, the color is as scarlet as blood, and the soul hangs on the cup very perfectly. Just like rubies. Everyone knows that Belsina likes fine wine and delicious food, and he has drunk quite a few good wines. But he has never tasted red wine brewed from wild mountain grapes. He put it under his nose and smelled it, and said with great enjoyment, "The fragrance is rich, and lingers for a long time. It is sweet in the sourness. It must be good and worth tasting." Then he put it to his lips, and took a sip gently. When he took a sip, the sour taste made Belsina frown. But after the sour taste passed, there was a very sweet taste lingering on the taste buds of the tongue. He didn't feel dry in his mouth when he drank it. The sour and sweet tastes were just right. When he opened his mouth, the air came into contact with his mouth. The fragrance began to spread along his nasal cavity. It was a rare good wine. He didn't expect that the wild mountain grapes at home could actually brew such a top-level red wine. It's not easy. I will have a good taste in the future. Looking at the human mule Brook with an expectant look on his face, he patted his shoulder with a laugh, personally took the bottle, and poured him a glass, and then said happily, "Well, you are so thoughtful. I'm so happy today that I can drink such delicious wine. To thank you for letting me taste such good wine so early, I will give you a whole barrel of wine as a reward, and it is the largest barrel." Chapter 266. Logging Team. Although the workers felt very tired after working for a day and a night, everyone listened carefully to the content of the broadcast. They all felt that the opportunity to make money had come, because although their boss Belsina was very generous and built a two-story cement house for each worker affected by the disaster, he had helped everyone a lot and had done his utmost. But after the flood, every family suffered heavy losses. The house built by the boss. Do you still want the boss to spend money to buy you rice? Do you still want the boss to spend money to buy you pots and pans? It is better to save yourself than to wait for rescue. Fortunately, everyone is used to living in poverty. When they were workers, they would save part of their monthly salary and save it. After the flood, the new house was built and moved in. The women in the family would use the money to buy some daily necessities, rearrange their own homes. But there are still a few people who know how to save money, and there are also moonlighters who live from month to month. Because there are too many people in the family, the monthly salary is only enough to make a living, and there is not much spare money. Master Belsina recruited lumberjacks, and the hourly wage reached 10 rupees, although working all day and all night was very tiring. But it was not difficult to work 8 hours as a lumberjack, go home to sleep, and then continue to work the next day. 10 hours is an extra income of 100 rupees. Who wouldn't be tempted? For a poor family, earning 100 rupees a day is quite good. At least they can cut some meat to improve their family's life. So the registration of lumberjacks is very popular, but not everyone can go up the mountain to cut wood. You must be physically strong and have some understanding of the situation in the mountains. Otherwise the poisonous insects and snakes in the jungle on the mountain will kill people. The second requirement is that you are physically strong. If you are not strong, how can you have the strength to cut wood? Although the big saw used for this house wood can't be pulled by 2 people without strength. Now is the end of the rainy season. It will rain for 10 hours and 24 hours a day, and the sparse rain will not stop for a day. If these felled wood is soaked in water for a long time, coupled with high temperature, it will soon rot and be eaten by insects. Therefore, felled timber needs to be transported to the industrial park in time and placed in the warehouse for peeling. Then, it is carried out by native methods. Although it is impossible to completely dry the timber, preparations have been made in advance. When the construction company specializing in building wooden buildings arrives, they will use the wood dryer in their hands to further dry the selected timber and then cut it. Belsina only did a basic job, preparing the raw materials, but the requirements are not low. Therefore, it is good to be able to select 20 out of 100 applicants. It only took one afternoon for several other factories to apply. 100 strong workers who are familiar with the situation in the forest were collected. Then Belsina took a car to the residence in the town, which is the general manager's office on the second floor of the building materials store, and told Will to use his connections. Go to the hardware store to buy some logging tools, including a logging saw for 2 people, a special axe for logging, and an iron chain. The most important thing is to ensure that each worker has a bamboo pole in his hand. This is a must-have equipment for going up the mountain. It will alert the snakes, otherwise it is easy to be bitten by poisonous snakes everywhere. Alerting the snakes is the most convenient way to drive away poisonous snakes. It is simple and effective. Early the next morning, all the tools you need must be prepared. It is already past 5 p.m. If it were an ordinary person, even if the hardware store has these tools, they would not sell them to you in the middle of the night. But the Singh family is different. The Singh family is too famous in the town. Who dares to offend the local tyrant Singh family? If you don't give you money, you should prepare all the tools, not to mention that you are still paid in cash. What's the reason to buy these tools and refuse this deal? It's later, so making money is the most important thing. So when the door of the Wujian bank in the town was knocked, the owner of the hardware store made a small fortune. At more than 10 o'clock that night, all the tools were ready. At this time, Will, who was keeping a careful eye, secretly came to his room, called Jamal, the housekeeper far away in the Laga Valley, and informed the old housekeeper that the master will take people up the mountain to cut wood tomorrow despite his own persuasion. The circle that Belsing drew on the map was in the deep mountains, and the locations chosen on the edge of the town were all covered with primitive rainforests. In addition, India's natural environment is well preserved, and there are all kinds of wild animals in the mountains. The most poisonous is the king cobra, and one drop of venom can kill 10 adults. The deadliest ones are tigers and elephants. When the Singh family caught the leopard, they paid a heavy price and almost let the master die from serious injuries. This is already a lesson, so why don't you learn it? Do you have to let the master be eaten by wild beasts before you learn the lesson? Stop the master's nonsense. So the old housekeeper was so scared that he almost had a heart attack, and he quickly took people to the town overnight. Moreover, each of the people he brought had a pistol and 4 strong bodyguards carrying AK-47s on their bodies. The only task of holding guns was to protect the master. The master must not be hurt by wild beasts, and Bell, who was sleeping soundly, had no feelings. When he got up early the next morning, he saw the old butler sitting on the coffee table in his room drinking tea. This made Bell feel very puzzled. He yawned, held a cigarette in his mouth, got up from the bed, walked to the old butler, and asked in confusion, "You came so early, is there nothing going on at home?" Seeing that his young master had not woken up yet, the old butler Jamal asked with a smile, "Master, I heard that you are going to lead people to cut wood in the primeval forest behind the industrial park. Is that right?" I didn't expect the old butler to be so well informed. Who told the old butler this secret? Of course, the old butler arranged how many spies around him. Although Belsinger didn't know the exact number, he knew that they existed. He just didn't want to ask. They had no ill intentions, but just wanted to ensure their own safety, so he laughed and said, "I know what you are worried about, sir. There are so many deadly beasts on the mountain, which will definitely threaten my safety. But don't worry, there are more than 100 people on the mountain. What are you afraid of? Even if you encounter a wild Asian elephant, it will be scared away by a group of hundreds of people. Will it attack people? Who said that Asian elephants will turn around and run away when they see hundreds of people? Master, you don't understand the horror of Asian elephants." When old Jamal Guanjia was young, he followed his father and Belsinger's grandfather to drive a group of more than a dozen wild Asian elephants up the mountain to prevent them from going down the mountain to harm the crops. The scene at that time was so tragic that old Jamal Guanjia would never forget it. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 267. Progress is smooth. At that time, the old housekeeper was still a young man in his 20s. He followed the adults in the family to the mountain to drive away the herd of Asian elephants, to prevent them from coming down the mountain from the lakeside passage to harm the crops. These giants have a huge appetite. When they appear, a small herd of more than a dozen elephants can destroy several acres of farmland overnight. The crops in the farmland are all eaten by these elephants, so the farmers have to starve for several months. So the scale of the destruction by the Asian elephants is quite terrifying. They not only eat, but also step on and trample on crops, especially rice and corn. There were dozens of people who went up the mountain that year, holding guns and bows in their hands, and even carrying machetes. After searching for dozens of minutes on the mountain, they saw the herd of Asian elephants that were harming the farm behind a small hill. The behavior of Asian elephants is actually similar to that of African elephants. The elephant herd is composed of female elephants and baby elephants. Male Asian elephants will be driven out of the family to make a living alone when they grow up. When they need to mate, Asian elephants will leave traces, induce adult male elephants to mate. So this small group of more than a dozen elephants are all female Asian elephants. Although they don't have tusks, the attack power of this group of elephants is really terrifying. The huge body can shuttle freely in the jungle, and the thick pads of the feet will make these Asian elephants walk silently. The body of more than 3 meters high is equivalent to a small tank when running, and all the trees and stones are crushed wherever they go. When the desire of the female Asian elephants to protect their cubs is aroused, the attack power is full. Even in the face of dozens of people besieging, 3 elephants were killed with guns, but the remaining female elephants took the baby elephants and dispersed all the people. The state of those who died tragically under the feet of Asian elephants was extremely terrifying. 1 foot down would crush people into meat paste. The human brain is like a watermelon, which is broken with a snap and crushed into meat patties, with brains spraying everywhere and blood flowing all over the ground. It is 100 times more terrifying than the way of death on the battlefield. If you really encounter a group of Asian elephants, you will definitely not be able to escape if you are inexperienced. Although Asian elephants are clumsy and huge, they run no slower than horses and much faster than humans. People can't outrun elephants at all. My master is too young and doesn't know the horror of Asian elephants. I thought that bringing hundreds of people to the mountain and beating gongs and drums would scare the elephants away. In that case, Asian elephants would not be able to live from ancient times to the present. So no matter how Bell explained, the old butler just disagreed and let Bell lead the team up the mountain alone. He had to follow him, and there were 4 bodyguards holding AK-47 submachine guns. The old butler didn't introduce the horror of Asian elephants to his master. Was he afraid of scaring Belsinger or not knowing the horror of the scene? Since the old butler didn't make sense, no matter what he said, as long as he accompanied me up the mountain, then go up the mountain. I can't drive the old butler out. So, in desperation, Belsinger finished breakfast and drove a truck with a large number of armed bodyguards to transport the logging tools and axes, and came to the industrial park. At this time, hundreds of people were waiting in the newly built square of the industrial park. Everyone was wearing tattered clothes and carrying a shoulder bag. The shoulder bag contained a water bottle and lunch. Why were they wearing tattered clothes? Because the scratches of trees on the mountain would be a nightmare for all new clothes. It would hang strips of cloth on your beautiful new clothes, so it would be better to wear tattered clothes and not feel sorry for scratching them. Although these people just got off the night shift, their morale was high. Groups of 3 or 5 squatted on the ground, smoking and chatting, discussing how to spend the overtime compensation issued by the boss and what to buy. After hearing the car sound, everyone stood up. When the car stopped, several agile workers climbed into the car. The tools were handed down and distributed to each worker. At this time, Ivan, the general manager who stayed behind, had prepared 2 large boxes filled with food and drinks. This was prepared for the boss Singh. The strong bodyguard held it in his hand and walked to Singh's side, asking in confusion, "Master, have you informed the old butler? Why did you bring so many people up the mountain?" But the old butler seems unhappy. He won't get angry like us workers, will he? When the old butler gets angry, it's quite terrifying. Who among the officials has not experienced the old butler's power? Seeing the old butler is like a mouse seeing a cat. There is a proverb circulating in the Singh family. That is, Master Singh is kind-hearted. No matter how big a mistake he made in front of Master Singh, as long as you take the initiative to admit your mistakes, you will be forgiven. But it doesn't work in front of the old butler. Any mistake must be punished accordingly. The old butler is the one who specializes in doing evil things in the Sin family, so everyone is afraid of him. This time, no matter how the old butler dissuades Singh, he will take people up the mountain. This makes the old butler feel very angry. He dare not get angry with Master Singh, but doesn't dare to get angry with them, the workers. So he put on a stinky face and everyone is afraid of him. Seeing the cautious vice president of the group, Ivan, so scared, I felt that I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. I didn't have time to talk nonsense to him, so I quickly called people to distribute tools, and then chose a narrow path in the cement mine, and then lined up in a long snake formation. There was an experienced middle-aged man in front, who protected Belsina in the center of the team, and went up the mountain little by little. The wood within a few hundred meters around the mine had long been cut down and sent to the kitchen as fuel for cooking. So there was an open space within a few hundred meters around, and not far away was the subtropical primitive jungle with lush branches and leaves. I heard faint after-sales and various bird calls from afar. The air was fresh, the birds were singing, and the flowers were fragrant. Because the number was so high that it blocked the sky, the light in the jungle was very dark and the grass was lush. In addition, there was sufficient rain, the temperature and things were very rich, especially the many snakes, so everyone had a 2-meter long bamboo pole in their hands, and they beat the grass while walking. Especially the person leading the way in front is the most dangerous. Both legs are inherited. The protective gi like elephant legs is to prevent the sudden attack of poisonous snakes. Of course, everyone who enters the mountain will shout a few times from time to time. Experienced people know that you have to make a lot of noise when entering the mountain. Prevent you from disturbing the wild animals, because frightened wild animals are the most terrible, and they will attack without hesitation. If you make a noise and let the wild animals in the distance know that humans have entered the mountain, these wild animals will choose their own route to retreat and try not to conflict with people. In fact, wild animals also know how powerful people are. So when they hear the movement of humans, they will choose to retreat first. After walking a few dozen meters up the mountain, they came to a small hillside. The hillside is sunny, so the trees grow very dense and thick. These trees are everyone's goal. Cutting wood does not necessarily mean going to the depths of the jungle, right? As long as the wood is suitable, just cut it. There is no need to say so much. Chapter 268, Bears in the Wild 1. Less than 100 meters into the mountain, they chose their target, which made everyone feel very happy. It is less than 300 meters away from the quarry mining area. Even if they use manual pulling, they can pull these trees to the quarry and then roll them down the mountain to save a lot of trouble. In addition, this is a sunny hillside with plenty of sunshine, so the trees grow very thick. There are all kinds of trees, a dazzling array. Although Belsina doesn't know what species these trees are, the workers living in the mountains know some trees more or less. So everyone chooses some hardwoods to cut down, and those softwoods with high water content are automatically ignored. Hundreds of workers are divided into two groups. One group of 70 people chooses trees to cut down, and the other group of 30 people takes their own machetes and tools and starts to clear a 5-meter wide road leading to the outside of the mountain to facilitate the transportation of trees. This is also because the mountain road is rugged, so large machinery can't come up. If there is a trailer to transport wood, it will be much easier. As a last resort, they had to use manual labor. These workers who had lived in the mountains for decades were all masters of logging. After all, they were close to the forests, and the raw materials for cooking and heating were all wood. Therefore, the speed of felling trees was very fast. In addition, due to the geographical advantage, two people sat on the hillside. One sat at the bottom of the hillside and pulled a 2-person iron pole together to saw the wood bit by bit. They were also very particular about the location of the wood and chose the upper side of the hillside. In this way, the felled wood would fall down, and there was only the creaking sound of pulling wood, and various slogans resounded throughout the forest. Belsina found a clean big rock and sat down next to the old Jamal housekeeper, who was very vigilant and looked around. Looking at the vigilant Jamal housekeeper, Belle felt tired, patted the bluestone under her body, let the old housekeeper sit up, and said helplessly, "Old housekeeper, we have just entered the jungle. We are at the edge of the forest within 100 meters. There will be no sudden attack from those large beasts. There is no need to be so nervous. Belsina said. Well, but the old housekeeper still did things according to his own habits and did not listen to Belsina at all. Don't stop. The old housekeeper has his own ideas. This is his privilege as an elder. In addition, although the mountain is full of jungle and is not exposed to the sun, the temperature is very high. It is the rainy season, so it is wet everywhere. When the temperature is high, these wet rainwater will form water vapor, making people feel very stuffy. It's like steaming in a sauna, but no one dares to take off their clothes. Now it is in the subtropical jungle, and there are poisonous insects, poisonous ants and poisonous snakes everywhere. There are insects crawling and biting everywhere. If you take off your clothes, you will be asking for trouble. You can't say when you will be bitten by insects. But Belle's personality does not have such troubles. Belsina is sitting on a large stone, and the area is not small. In addition, the heat of the sun makes the stone heated, so the surrounding water vapor has long been consumed. Although his butt felt hot, the surrounding temperature was very cool. Belsina took out a cigarette and looked at the logging site with a smile while smoking. From time to time, some orders were issued to let everyone pay attention to safety. The first tree was felled in 20 minutes, and then everyone rushed up with a big axe. The tree over 20 meters high was dismembered. The wood over 10 centimeters thick could be used, but the branches and twigs were useless and could only be used for burning. The selected workers were all experienced. The locations for felling were the bends of some trees to keep the best section of wood. The wood cut into pieces was up to 5 meters long, which was the most standard length. After the wood was processed, everyone would hold a hemp rope and a crowbar, and 4 people would lift the wood to the open space. Because the quarry was too close, the felled wood could be thrown down from the quarry, which saved a lot of troublesome work processes. It is impossible to lift the wood with a diameter of several tens of centimeters. Tie the other end of the wood with an iron chain, and then use a winch to pull it forward little by little. When you come to the bottom of the hillside, you will see a passage with a diameter of more than 1.5 meters, with a round wooden plug placed every 30 centimeters. Then push the wood on the passage manually, and the rolling of the thick branches underneath will make the thick wood move forward little by little. The main stem of this tree has not been transported out yet, and the next wood begins to fall, and then everyone rushes up. After cleaning this tree and working smoothly for several hours, everyone is exhausted. More than 20 trees have been cut down, and the total area has reached 20 cubic meters. The project has been very satisfactory so far in the morning. So when he saw the sun, Belsina called all the workers to come around the big rock to prepare for lunch. Then take a break for half an hour. The lunch brought by the workers is prepared by the canteen of the industrial park to increase the energy of these workers. The rice was coconut rice, which was made by steaming rice and coconut milk. It had the fragrance and sweetness of coconut milk. The dishes were also very simple, that is, curry chicken legs. Each person would be given 2 chicken legs, mixed in coconut rice. Grab it in your hand and send it to your mouth. It was very happy and sweet. There was no loss in the morning, and no snake bites. The smooth journey made these workers feel very happy. Belsina was even happier that no worker was lost. After opening the box, it was full of wrapped delicacies. The treatment of the boss was very different from that of the civil servants. Not only were there all kinds of delicious food, but there was also iced beer. Only the old butler was qualified to eat with Belsina, but the old butler ate very little and always frowned to observe the surrounding environment. Belsina didn't care. He knew in his heart that this was caused by the old butler's excessive worrying and nervousness. There was nothing wrong, but he had to worry and be afraid. Isn't it tiring to be so nervous? It was useless to persuade them. Anyway, there was no danger. Let the old housekeeper go. So they ate, drank and chatted with several bodyguards. After 40 minutes of eating, hundreds of workers would find their own safer places and lie on the ground or on banana leaves to rest. After an hour, they got up and continued to cut wood. At this time, 2 workers felt urgent. It might be diarrhea caused by the food they had in the morning. But it was not good to squat on the ground and poop in front of their boss, so they agreed to find a secluded place to solve their urgent problems. But before they unbuttoned their pants, they heard the roar of the beast behind them. The 2 workers looked back stupidly and almost fainted. A sloth bear with cubs appeared on the stone on the hill in front of the two people. The two long claws of the sloth bear knocked and hit the stone, roaring loudly, warning the two humans not to get close. Chapter 269, Boonie Bears 2. The sloth bear is a small bear in the bear family. It is the smallest except for the Malayan bear, but don't be fooled by its small size. It has a very ferocious character. Sloth bears are mainly distributed in southern India, Sri Lanka, Bhutan and other countries. The main food is honey and termites, but if it encounters meat, male sloth bears even dare to snatch food from Bengal tigers. Regardless of its size, it is a bear and a pure wild animal. Seeing two humans appear at the door of its home, especially a mother bear carrying her child, you can imagine how angry this mother bear would be when she saw two humans standing in front of her. In the case of protecting her children, sloth bears can even fight against Asian lions. Among the records of various bears killing humans, 80% are because humans are the first to provoke trouble. Standing between the mother bear and the cub is a serious provocation in the eyes of the bears. It is a threat to the life and safety of their children. It would be strange if they let you go. Although the Indian subcontinent has had such a habit since ancient times, people like to catch sloth bears, remove their teeth and claws, put them on hot plates, let them practice dancing, and then perform circuses to make money. The treatment of these sloth bears in Pakistan and Iran is even more miserable. In these Arab countries, there is a popular fight between sloth bears and dogs. Although the sloth bear is small, except for the Tibetan Mastiff, no canine can threaten its life, and it can't beat the bear. So why is there a fight between dogs and bears? That's because humans will remove all the teeth and claws of the sloth bear, and the sloth bear will lose its most advantageous fighting weapon. In addition, it has to face 2 to 4 fierce fighting dogs and sloth bears to fight, and the victory or defeat is only 50%. Either the hound wins the game or the sloth bear wins the game. Anyway, it's so tragic. Blood and flesh are flying everywhere, and people with poor psychological quality don't dare to watch it at all. Now a sloth bear protecting its cubs appears in front of two workers, although they are more than 2 meters apart. One is on the cliff and the human is under the cliff. But Indians all know that sloth bears are very flexible, and climbing trees and walls is not a problem. Otherwise they would not be able to climb trees to eat fruits. More than 2 meters high, it seems dangerous to humans, but to the sloth bear, it jumps over easily. Who wouldn't be afraid of the mother bear who has been madly protecting her cubs? The two workers who had just solved the diarrhea problem were trembling with fear, supporting each other, and slowly retreating. At this time, the sound of a large group of people and horses roaring behind them sounded, just as the mother sloth bear roared to the two humans who invaded its territory and declared sovereignty. The huge noise has alarmed everyone, and this beast roar scared everyone. Of course, many people also heard that it was the roar of the sloth bear. But for people like Belsina who have never been in close contact with those wild beasts, they don't know what the roar is, but it sounds very imposing. You can also hear the anger and killing brought by the roar. Belsina, who was half asleep and half awake, jumped up from the stone. He looked around blankly and shouted loudly, "Get up, get up, there are wild beasts approaching, hurry up and pick up your weapons. If you know what kind of wild beast it is, tell me quickly." Belsina was really scared. He had cut down a lot of wood smoothly in the morning, but he didn't expect to face the challenge of wild beasts just after lunch break. He was still swearing and patting his chest to guarantee that there was no danger in the mountain. Isn't this a naked slap in the face? How strong will I be when I promise to the old housekeeper in the future? In addition, encountering wild beasts is life-threatening. These men who may die are the pillars of the family and the only adult males in the family who can make money. If they die in the mountains and are killed by wild beasts, what kind of darkness will their families fall into? Poverty is the common killer of all mankind. Instead of wild beasts in the mountains, everyone got up quickly and grabbed the weapons around them under Belsina's urging. Those who didn't have any even took a wooden stick and approached the person closest to them, and then formed a protective circle that was unanimously facing outward. Put your back inside the circle to prevent wild animals from attacking you. After all, wild animals like to attack humans from behind. Belsina was very scared, but the old butler and some older and experienced people didn't care. Seeing Belsina trembling down from the rock and putting on his shoes, the old butler couldn't help laughing, patted Belsina on the shoulder and said comfortingly, "Master, it's okay. I knew it was a female sloth bear when I heard the cry." Sloth bears seem to be in the lactation period in this season. It seems that this sloth bear mother is carrying her child on her back, so she roared so angrily. Sloth bears are also bears. They bite people. Some individual sloth bears have even killed male Bengal tigers. It's obvious who will win and who will lose when fighting against such a wild animal. Although I chose to believe what the old butler said, how can I not be anxious when human lives are at stake? Belsina, who put on his shoes, looked around with his hands on his waist and roared loudly. "Who left? Everyone, look at each other and see who left. Which direction did they leave? Everyone, support him. Don't let the wild animals hurt our companions. If they die, what will happen to their families?" Everyone felt that it was true. They were all workers and the only men in their families who could earn money. If they died, everyone in the family would be in trouble. They couldn't help but feel a sense of grief. In addition, the master repeatedly asked them to find out who was missing. The feeling of caring for the workers made them feel warm in their hearts. Everyone looked at each other and looked for each other if they knew each other. At this time, the two people from the asbestos tile factory raised their hands and shouted loudly to Belsina, "Master, our two workers are missing. Just now when they were eating, they said they had a stomachache. They might have diarrhea when they went out. Now we meet Lazy Bear. Both of them are carrying knives. They won't be in danger for a while. Let's go and rescue them. What are you waiting for?" Belsina quickly called the bodyguards around him, whether it was machine guns or pistols, to load bullets for me. If this sloth bear doesn't show his face and hurts his workers, Belsina doesn't mind eating grilled bear paws tonight. Which is more important, beasts or humans? Belsina knows exactly which is less important. Although the number of sloth bears has plummeted in recent years and their living conditions are very miserable, he is a beast, and humans have feelings that beasts don't. Belsina does not allow beasts to hurt his men. Hurting one person is equivalent to hurting a family. So he quickly called for people, and a large group of people rushed in the direction where the two people disappeared. At this time, the two people who were directly facing the sloth bear pulled out the machetes at their waists to cover each other, and then retreated little by little. Keep your front facing the sloth bear to prevent the crazy female bear from attacking. If you really give your back to the beast, then congratulations, you will not survive in 9 out of 10 cases. Chapter 270, Chase Me. If it is put in normal times, this method is indeed effective. The sloth bear is not big and has many natural enemies in the wild. For example, tigers and leopards. Although the sloth bear is stupid and silly, and it is missing a few front teeth, this beast is actually very smart. After all, bears hunt by intelligence. Although they are wild beasts, they will also measure each other's strength. If a wild beast is injured in the wild, it will face hunger and death. If it is not a threat to its cubs or a vicious incident such as invading the territory, they will not fight each other for their lives, and finally get a lose-lose situation. No one is happy. Therefore, wild animals will try to reduce conflicts with each other, which is why the territory drawing appears. But this time it didn't work. I don't know what happened to this female sloth bear. What's wrong with it? What's crazy? Facing two adult men, she didn't want to conflict with this sloth bear and slowly retreated. But this behavior is a serious provocation to the mother sloth bear. It is possible that the area where Belsina cuts wood is the core area of the territory of this female sloth bear. So seeing the two adult men slowly retreat, the female sloth bear became more and more angry and stood up on her hind legs. The two sharp front claws slammed into the ground with great force, making a loud bang and filling the air with dust. Then, it opened its mouth with missing front teeth and roared loudly, and it also walked forward little by little, approaching. This scared the two people. This female sloth bear was not in line with common sense. Seeing the humans retreat, she chose to give in. Why would she attack again? Could it be that the harsh natural environment these days has driven these wild animals crazy? The two people trembled with the hatchets in their hands. To be honest, facing an angry sloth bear, they really had no idea At this time, they heard the sound of people in the distance and knew that their boss led his workers to support them. At this time, the two people breathed a sigh of relief and had the confidence to fight against the sloth bear. To be honest, if the female sloth bear did not take the initiative to attack, the two workers would not step forward to provoke and try to avoid conflict. But the opposite happened. The hearing and sense of smell of wild animals are much more sensitive than those of humans, not to mention the sloth bear that relies on smell to find food. It had already smelled the scent of humans, and the number of humans was really not something that a female sloth could contend with. That was a large group of people. Under normal circumstances, this sloth bear would definitely turn around and run away with its cubs, but today this sloth bear went crazy. It roared from the hillside and jumped down with its two front paws, like two daggers with 5 sharp blades, and it grabbed the chests of the two workers at once. This guy tore the workers' clothes directly, leaving 5 deep scars that could be seen to the bone, and blood spurted out at once. The two workers screamed in pain and fell to the ground. But after all, they were 2 adult men, and when faced with the threat of death, the 2 were unwilling to die in the bear's mouth. Grabbing the hatchet that fell on the side, he waved it blindly, and while waving it, he shouted from the crowd behind him, "Hurry up, someone is hurt by a sloth bear. This female wolf bear is crazy. It actually bites people. It wants to eat us. Come quickly." From a distance, Belsina heard the screams of the workers. This is still a joke. His workers were almost eaten by bears right under his nose. Now he is injured. This is a naked blow to his prestige. This is a work injury. He is responsible for being hurt by a sloth bear during working hours, although no one dares to pursue his troubles. But facing moral condemnation, he can't stand it and will definitely take responsibility to the end. Now a person is broken into 2 halves. These workers have worked the night shift for a day and a night, and now they are working overtime to help him cut down trees. Whether it is good energy or physical strength, they can't keep up. The consequences of facing a crazy female beast can be imagined. 100% combat effectiveness will also drop to 20%. Belsina grabbed the bodyguard beside him and the gun on his waist and fired at the sky. The gun blasted. In this empty forest, there was a loud noise like a thunderbolt from the blue sky. Wild animals are afraid of such gunshots and the sound of iron colliding. As the gunshots rang out, the female sloth bear that was biting the worker's leg suddenly became sober and sniffed around, then turned around and ran away with a roar. Soon they got into the depths of the jungle, and the 2 workers who survived the disaster supported each other and leaned against the big tree. Looking at the scars on their chests that looked like 5 daggers, they were in pain, but fortunately, they were blocked by the sternum and were not disemboweled on the spot. Otherwise, there would be no way to save them. But even so, they bled too much, and the 2 workers trembled all over in pain, and they couldn't stand steadily. If they didn't have many ties in their hearts, the 2 people would even faint on the spot. At this time, the crowd slowly gathered around, and everyone had deadly weapons in their hands, except for machetes and wooden sticks. But because of Belsina's size, he moved very slowly. After a long time, Singh ran to the 2 people panting. At this time, Belsina was in a miserable state. His face was pale, his head was covered with sweat, and his clothes were torn. But seeing the 2 workers with 5 deep scars on their chests that could be seen to the bone made Belsina feel extremely angry. Although the 2 people were lying on the ground trembling in pain and bleeding all over the ground, they were not in any danger of life. As long as they were sent to the hospital for suture treatment in time, they would be healthy again after 2 months of recovery. But can the matter be left like this? He did not intend to hurt the beasts in the mountains, but the beasts attacked people, and that was the reason for their death. It was his workers who were hurt in front of him, causing him to lose 2 important labor forces. This revenge must be avenged. Looking at the crowd surrounding the 2 injured people, all eyes were focused on him, letting him make the decision. Belsina quickly gave orders. "What are you all standing there for? Hurry up and cut the branches, and make 2 stretchers. Take the 2 injured workers down the mountain, and send them to the hospital for emergency treatment. I will pay for all the medical expenses. Don't worry about the treatment. Tell the hospital director that these are workers from the Singh family. Ask him to allocate 2 vacant beds for hospitalization." Be sure to use the best medicine to ensure that the wounds do not become inflamed or infected. Then he squatted beside the two workers with a smile, patted their shoulders, and promised, "You two were very brave when facing the lazy bear, and did not embarrass the Singh family. The injuries were all frontal assaults. After all, scars are a man's metal, haha. Don't worry about your injuries. All the lost wages and medical expenses will be borne by the Singh family. Also tell the women in your family, I will make some delicious food for you. Make sure you are nutritious, and then go to the finance department of your factory every month to reimburse you." The two workers were so moved that they kept thanking them. It's good to be with your boss. If you get hurt, there will be someone to take care of you. This is a very rare act of kindness in the local area. After telling the two workers to have a good rest, some other experienced people started to make stretchers, and Belsina called the team leaders to his side, watching everyone walk with a frown, and said, "You guys lead the team to continue cutting wood, and I will lead the team to track down the sloth bear and make sure to kill it." Chapter 271. It's really hard to travel through the deep mountains and old forests. At this time, the old butler Jamal on the side was startled, grabbed Belsina, and said with a shaking arm, "Master, no, you must not go into the depths of the jungle. It's too dangerous. If you are really angry, let me lead the team in and bring the female sloth bear back for you. It's over. You must put yourself in danger." Belsina knew that the old butler was doing this for his own good and for his own safety. After all, he is the backbone of the Singh family. If he loses himself, the Singh family will fall from grace, and whether it can survive will become a problem. But Belsina is angry. If he cuts down trees in the depths of the jungle and encounters wild beasts, it is understandable. But I'm cutting down trees with workers on the edge of the jungle. What does it have to do with these wild beasts? Why attack my workers? Now one person is split into two people, and two important labor forces are lost for no reason. The loss caused to myself is immeasurable, and I have to pay for medical expenses, nutrition expenses, and lost wages. How much is it? Do I have so much money? Damn lazy bear, who else can you attack? You specifically attack my workers. It would be strange if I could let you beasts go. So Belsina slapped the old butler's hand angrily and said helplessly, "Butler, don't say anything more. I must go this time, otherwise how can I explain to everyone? A boss who can't protect his subordinates. What's the point of having me as a boss? It's true that it's very dangerous in the mountains, but our Singer family is not made of clay. Are you holding a gun or a fire stick in your hand? Let alone an elephant. Can a rhino withstand the AK-47 strafing? What's so scary about it?" The old butler saw that Belsina's eyes were red, and he knew that he couldn't persuade him. Although Belsina usually looks chubby and smiling, he is easy to talk to, but his temper is too stubborn. Once he makes up his mind, 8 cows can't pull him back. He is the only person in the world who can stop Belsina from getting hot-headed. Only Lina, who even the old butler doesn't have the ability to make Belsina's anger disappear. Belsina is really irritated. What do you think this lazy bear is crazy about? Why attack humans? The housekeeper couldn't control, persuade, or stop him. Belsing went into the mountain. He could only try his best to protect Belsing's safety. So he turned around with big eyes and looked at the 10 bodyguards of the character family with guns around him and shouted to everyone, "You all heard it. Why did the master go into the mountain? It was to avenge the workers in the family. Master Singh treats us as his own relatives and will do this. Now Master Singh is going up the mountain. What kind of dangers are there in the mountain? You know better than me. Mobilize all your sensitive senses and load all the guns in your hands. Be ready to sacrifice for the Singh family at any time. If you sacrifice, your family will be taken care of by your grandfather. What should we do if the master sacrifices? You must think clearly about this." These bodyguards of the Singh family were all raised and trained by the Singh family since childhood, and their loyalty to the Singh family reached 100%. Each of these people would not hesitate to take the bullet for Master Singh. Just as the old housekeeper said, if they were to sacrifice for Master Singh, the family will be well taken care of, but if the master dies, can they survive? Can their families survive? Where can they live such a life without worries about food and clothing? Will they sell their children for food like those refugees who suffered from the flood? These people have grown up in the mountains since childhood. The back mountain of the Laga Valley, where the Singh family stayed, is a primeval forest with numerous wild beasts. They have seen all kinds of wild beasts. Of course, they know how powerful wild beasts are, and they also know whether the old housekeeper is joking. Since the master is going, they swear to follow him to death, chill loudly, and then start to organize their equipment. Load the pistol and machine gun, turn on the safety and even put the spare magazines on their waists, and then start to tie their shoelaces. Take out the machete you carry with you, and prepare to open the way. At this time, the stretcher has been made, and the 2 workers have been carried up. The team leader is personally responsible for transporting the 2 workers down the mountain, and then the character drives all these people back to the logging site. Now it was quiet, with only a dozen people from the Singh family left. However, the road into the mountain was difficult to walk on. There was no road at all. It was all covered by plants. Bel Singh and his men were not dogs, and they could not shuffle through tree roots. They could only clear the way with a machete. At this time, 2 experienced and older bodyguards took the initiative to take responsibility. They were at the forefront of the team. One was to clear the way with a machete, and the other was to find the escape route of the female sloth bear. Bel Singh followed in the middle of the team. The old housekeeper personally supported them, and walked forward little by little. To be honest, it was very difficult to shuffle through the dense jungle. The speed of action can be described as crawling, and you must always pay attention to your feet, so that you don't get hurt by stones or poisonous snakes. Every step was extremely difficult, and Bel Singh's size was a bit too big. When he went up the mountain, he was tired and leaned forward without taking a breath. His face was pale, and beads of sweat flowed down his face. He walked for more than half an hour, before stopping to rest. He looked back, and saw that he had not walked more than 2 kilometers, but he could still hear the sound of logging in the distance. But even so, Bel Singh still gritted his teeth and persisted. Although Bel Singh did not say it, everyone knew that his master had reached his limit. Bel Singh would definitely not be able to bear it if he went further inside, so he had no choice but to have 2 young and strong bodyguards. One of them held Bel Singh's hand, and there was another one pushing him from behind. Only when the 3 of them supported Bel Singh could he keep up with the pace of the large group. This made Bel Singh begin to miss Brook of Human Flesh. Luo. That kid was as strong as a cow. Not to mention going up the mountain. Not to mention the jungle. Even in the desert, he could carry him and walk fast. Why should he suffer this? But now Brook of Human Flesh Luo is at home. It is useless to miss him if he is not at the scene. Although the 3 bodyguards who helped him go up the mountain are about the same age as Brook of Human Flesh Luo, their physical fitness is far worse. We walked up the mountain, and after we crossed a small hill, there was a stream more than 3 meters wide. After we crossed it, the 2 experienced bodyguards who were leading the way waved their hands, and asked everyone to check. Then we carefully observed the vegetation on the banks of the stream to see if there was anything special about it. As the saying goes, people walk on human paths, and animals have their own paths. This means that people are used to walking on the paths they have opened up, which is the most labor saving. The same is true for wild animals. Wild animals have their own paths, such as the paths that are patrolled from time to time. There are also paths for drinking water, which will leave their own traces. If experienced hunters set up an ambush on the path where wild animals walk, the chances of successful hunting will increase exponentially. Chapter 272, Jungle Camping. But the vegetation on the mountain was too dense, and the light was not so good, although the 2 bodyguards who opened the way were experienced. But after changing many positions, and using a lot of natural light, it took more than 20 minutes to find the passage where the sloth bear came to the stream to drink water. After finding the passage, we found the clues to track the sloth bear, in order to confirm again and again whether this animal path was walked by the sloth bear all year round. Further testing is needed to find a small branch, measure the width and height of this passage, and then recall the size of the female blue bear that attacked the 2 workers. Only then did we confirm that this was the passage formed by the female sloth bear coming to the stream to drink water for a long time, and we found the right place. This made Bel Singh very happy. He waved his hand, to let the 2 bodyguards who were opening the way in front continue to move forward, and then he easily moved forward with the help of the 3 bodyguards, running around on the mountain. As time went by, the distance into this primitive jungle became farther and farther, and the trees were also very tall. It can be said that it covers the sky and the sun, so people walking under the tree feel that the light is very dim. As they walked further and further, it was already evening, and the light in the jungle began to become increasingly dim. Only then did the old steward stop the team, panting and putting his hands on his waist, and then he persuaded Belsinger, "Master, it's already past 6 in the afternoon, and it will be completely dark in 2 hours. It's too dangerous in the jungle. Should we go back now and come back tomorrow?" Belsinger also looked up at the sky above the jungle and saw that the sun had begun to set, and carefully observed the surrounding environment. He was halfway up a mountain, surrounded by dense vegetation. The air was particularly humid and hot, and there was some dew on the leaves and grass. Now the arrow is on the string, and it has to be fired. If we go back, it will definitely be too late. But he didn't bring any equipment to camp in the mountains. You know, camping in such a deep mountain forest without equipment and protective measures is tantamount to suicide. The danger is too great, but Belsinger was unwilling to give up. You are about to be caught, and you are thin. If you go back now, how can you explain to the workers? He could only bite the bullet and shake his head. It seems that it is too late for the old housekeeper to go back now. There is no choice but to spend the night in the jungle. Let's find a clearing, light a bonfire, clean up the surrounding grass and trees, don't let those poisonous insects and ants bite us, and let 2 experienced bodyguards go to see if there are any prey around. The old housekeeper couldn't help but sigh. He knew that it was useless to ask, but he couldn't help asking. The answer he got was the same as what he thought. Although Master Belsinger's body was scraped into strips, his face was covered with blood marks, and he was exhausted and panting. The master's character was really too tough. Once he made up his mind, 8 cows couldn't pull him back. He knew that it was very dangerous to spend the night in the jungle, but he still had to spend the night in the jungle. He had to find the female sloth bear that attacked the workers, otherwise he would never withdraw his troops. The master was fighting with the female sloth bear, and the 2 sides would not stop until they died. The master has ordered this. What else can I do? It has come to this point, so I will do it according to my master's wishes. When I go home, I must complain to Mrs. Linner and ask Mrs. Linner to take good care of the master's hot temper. No matter whether it is a person or a beast, anyone who angers the master will not get a good reward and will fight to the end with the other party. With such a strong character, he will definitely suffer in the future. Of course, this is a matter for the future. Now let's ensure the safety of my master first. So the old butler showed his management ability, shouted loudly, and commanded all the bodyguards around to start the action. Everyone scattered to find a flat place to prepare to camp. The old butler took basing and did some work within his ability, that is, picking up firewood. Now everyone has no survival equipment except weapons. If there is no firewood and no bonfire, they will be attacked by wild beasts at night. It will be dangerous at that time. It is not a problem of more than a dozen people. It is a problem whether we can find the bones of people. They have eaten them all, so the bonfire is very important. All wild animals are afraid of fire, smoke, and the sound of iron tools. This is the experience of wild animals and humans fighting for tens of thousands of years from ancient times to the present. Because these things are not weapons that their claws, teeth, and fur can contend with, lighting a bonfire can help you spend a night in the Amazon rainforest safely. If you don't have a bonfire, then congratulations, not to mention those man-eating beasts. Even poisonous insects and ants will eat you up without leaving any bones. As the saying goes, there is strength in numbers, and the Singh family's bodyguards are experienced. Not long after, 2 bodyguards ran over from a distance and said happily to the old housekeeper and Belsing who were picking up firewood. Found it, found a piece of flat land, which is enough for more than a dozen people to camp, and the surrounding area is very clean. After finding the camping site, it was easy to hand the firewood in his arms to the 2 bodyguards, and followed the 2 bodyguards up the hillside. He came to the top of the mountain, and saw the flat open space of more than 10 square meters. How could there be such an open space of more than 10 square meters in the jungle in southwest India? Because the open space is full of rocks. Although there are cracks in the rocks, it is still rocks. Trees and plants cannot grow on rocks, so such a flat piece of land is controlled. There is no grass around, it is very clean, and you can camp without cleaning, which is perfect. The straight line distance from the stream on the mountain is no more than 300 meters, but you have to cross a ridge, so the actual distance will definitely exceed 2 kilometers. It is very troublesome to get water once. At this time, the sky is getting darker and the light is getting weaker. The roars of various beasts are getting more and more frequent. If you don't hurry up, it will be dark. It's too dangerous to run around in the jungle. So quickly organize people to fetch water, clean the camp, heat the camp, and hunt. Of course, these tasks are completed by hands. Belsina and the old housekeeper are only responsible for making fire. After the flame, although the temperature is very high, it is a bit uncomfortable to roast, but it can guarantee your safety at night. When the bonfire burns to the most, fierce gunfire is heard from the left mountain. Half an hour later, the hunters came back with their prey. They had unexpectedly killed a medium-sized male sika deer. Its antlers had only grown to the size of a 2-year-old deer, and it seemed that it had just left the group. The sika deer weighed more than 100 kilograms, and excluding the internal organs and skin, it was enough for the dozen people to eat. Chapter 273, an ancient temple hidden in the jungle. Less than half an hour after the horses and men were dispersed, a sika deer was hunted, and dinner was finally settled. You can imagine that the population of the Indian subcontinent is second only to that of China. Some people even think that, because the Indian population has a higher literacy rate, there must be some omissions when registering the population. It is almost certain that India is the world's most populous country, with such a small area supporting so many people. However, the wild animals in India are extremely abundant, which has caused many cases of conflict between people and wild animals. This is a very distorted natural environment ratio. Why is this? That is because Indians are influenced by Indian religion and rarely eat wild animals. That is, the meat of wild animals is more delicious than those of domestic animals, but they rarely eat them, so wild animals are preserved. Of course, with the development of social economy in recent years, Indians will not hunt wild animals, but they will hunt rhinos, elephants, and tigers. These wild animal products are sold on the black market to the international market to make a lot of money. As the saying goes, people die for money and birds die for food. This is also the sadness of wild animals. India is the only country where tigers and lions coexist. India also has its own 5 big animals, including lions, leopards, buffaloes, elephants, and rhinos. Lions, tigers, elephants, rhinos, and leopards. India even has cheetahs, which is simply unimaginable in other countries, but it is very reasonable in India. A sika deer was pulled to the water's edge, cleaned, and then the 4 legs and 2 ribs were taken back and roasted on the fire. Although there are no seasonings such as salt and pepper, there are countless wild spices in the mountains and they can be seen everywhere. Just wander around, and you will find a lot of natural spices. The taste is quite good when applied to the barbecue. The old butler was in charge of the barbecue. Because of the master's status, he would not accept the food roasted by the low-ranking servants, so only the butler could do it. While the old butler was roasting, the bodyguards were not idle either. They began to have a clear division of labor. Some people began to collect some hay to prepare a mattress for their own master. Some others took homemade torches and shuttled through the jungle to see if there were any wild fruit trees. If there are ripe wild fruits, picking them can replenish physical strength and solve the greasy feeling brought by barbecue. As for the noble lord, he can only sit on the stone and wait for these people to work. If Belsina is asked to do it, his fat body is really a bit of an obstacle. When it was completely dark, the howling sounds of various wild animals in the jungle came one after another. The wild animals that forage during the day would choose to return to their caves at night. The animals that hibernate during the day and come out at night began to forage for food. Sloth bears are nocturnal and hunt at night. Even if the female sloth bear that hurt people appeared around Belsina's camp, people could not see it. Night is the biggest enemy of mankind in the jungle. All the guns are placed within their reach, and the safety is turned on to fire, ready to participate in the battle at any time. After eating and drinking, Belsina lay in the haystack and felt very comfortable and warm. In addition, running around in the mountains all day was really difficult for Belsina, a fat man, lying on the haystack, snoring for no more than 10 minutes, sleeping like a dead pig. But these bodyguards and Jamal housekeeper were not so lucky. At the beginning, the shifts were arranged for 2 hours each time. 2 bodyguards patrolled around with guns, fearing that wild animals would suddenly attack. The rest of the people lay on the cold stone, sleeping with one eye open and one eye closed, ready to deal with sudden attacks at any time. No one, including the old housekeeper, slept as soundly as Belsina. Fortunately, the night passed without danger, because the bonfire never stopped burning, and the wild animals around did not dare to approach. Belsina opened his eyes at the moment the sun rose, but felt that the clothes he was wearing were wet. Because the moisture in the jungle was too great, he wiped his face, which saved the trouble of washing his face by the river. Climbing out of the haystack, I saw that the bodyguards around me had their own work to do, and even the 2 older bodyguards who led the way yesterday began to carry machetes, repairing the bamboo tubes formed by cutting bamboo on the mountain, drilling a hole on the bamboo barrel, and then plugging it with hay. It can serve as a temporary kettle. There was still a lot of meat left from the roasted cicadee last night, which was relatively fresh and enough for a dozen people to have a meal. After drinking some water and eating some barbecue, they put out the fire and followed the bodyguards who opened the way to continue to move forward into the forest. Although the road was very rugged, with the experience of yesterday, everyone cooperated very well. The progress was also very smooth. After crossing 2 small hills, looking down from the top of the mountain, the good guys were all dozens of meters high trees. Nothing could be seen below, but some trickling water could be heard. Because the main food of the sloth bear is honey and termites, of course, termite piles are eaten everywhere at will. But there is a very troublesome problem with silver, that is, the taste is sour and astringent. Although it can be used as the staple food of the sloth bear and can fill its stomach, the sloth bear needs to drink a lot of water to quench its thirst after eating termites. It is inseparable from the water source. This is the fatal weakness of the sloth bear. As long as you find water, you can find the sloth bear. You will know when you hear the sound of trickling water. There must be sloth bears around. We finally found the base camp of this hurtful sloth bear. Why should we be polite? We went down the mountain screaming. We crossed a small river that was more than 4 or 5 meters wide and came to the top of the mountain. We saw a valley surrounded by mountains. The trees were tall and the grass was lush. There were many birds, especially chirping. We could hear more than a dozen bird calls. The valley was very flat. There was another small river on the left, which was very suitable for human habitation. Unfortunately, the valley was full of trees that covered the sky. It seemed that there had been no traces of human habitation for 1,000 years, otherwise the trees would not have grown so lush and big. We climbed over a boulder that was as tall as a 2-story building. Suddenly, the 2 bodyguards who were leading the way in front of us stood there motionless with a cry of "Ah!" as if they had seen something ghostly. The old housekeeper thought he had encountered a group of elephants, so he quickly ordered people to pick up weapons and hide behind the rocks, ready to face the sudden attack of the elephants head on. But after listening for a while, there was no movement. At this time, the 2 bodyguards who were leading the way in front were surprised and ran to Belsina's side, saying in a coherent manner, "Master, Master, I saw the temple." Those stone temples were surrounded by big trees. The roots of some big trees even split the actual temple buildings in half. It was really amazing. I saw the temple. It was strange to see the temple. When Belsina was in school, he didn't learn about the ancient buildings around the town of Sinjar. In addition, Indians are afraid of God, so it is impossible to abandon the temple and let the temple be abandoned in this desolate mountain. What happened? Did he see a ghost? If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 274, Catching a Turtle in a Jar. The two guys were talking incoherently, as if they were frightened by something strange, which made Belsina very angry. With this little courage, they could still act as bodyguards. If his life was handed over to them, even if he had 100 heads, it would not be enough for others to chop. So he quickly stood up, left the two incoherent guys behind, and after walking around the big rock, he was stunned by the scene in front of him. In front of him was a very old temple, all stone buildings. There were traces on the stones, and moss proved that the temple had been abandoned for more than hundreds of years. The strangest thing was that there were many tall trees growing in this temple, and the roots of the trees were very developed. The walls of the temple and some stone buildings had been separated from the middle. There were tree roots in the stones, and there were stones in the roots of the trees. How weird it was, how weird it was. No wonder the two people were scared like this. After all, in the Indian society, God represents everything, and the ability to control everything. Nothing in people's lives can escape the will of God. There are more than 330 million gods in Hinduism. Even a professional myopic person can't tell all the gods apart. What are their names and what functions they have, and no one can remember the names of all the gods. Seeing this strange scene in front of him, Belsina was stunned. At the same time, he thought of the most famous Angkor Wat in Cambodia, Southeast Asia. However, the Buddha statues in Angkor Wat are like this, and even some tree roots have wrapped the entire Buddha statue. You have me, and I have you, which can be called a natural wonder. The scale of the temple ruins in front of him is very large, occupying almost 1/10 of the entire valley. Because it is covered by trees, it is really hard to see the whole picture. But the stone walls are still vaguely visible. Seeing that the master was very angry just now, the scene in the valley has become the same as the two people just now. This makes everyone feel curious about what strange scene the master saw, and was shocked like this. The crowd bypassed the big stone one by one, and they were all shocked and spectacular when they saw the scene in front of them. It was quite spectacular. At this time, the knowledgeable Jamal Butler was the first to react. He pointed to a stone statue in the stone building with surprise, and said to Bell, "Master, look, isn't that a Buddha statue carved out of stone? I didn't expect that there would be such an ancient site in the mine contracted by our family. If it is developed, it will definitely sell well, and it will be no less than Angkor Wat in Cambodia. Aren't you talking nonsense? This is a classic relic of an ancient Buddhist temple, and it is not much worse than Angkor Wat. It's just that the scale is not as large as Angkor Wat, but the ruins of these temples are really too seriously damaged by trees. 90% of the temple buildings have collapsed. One day, the ruins are developed. Who will come to visit this ruin that looks like a quarry? Although your Buddhist ruins are good, no one calls it as well preserved as Angkor Wat. This is the difference. This is a hard flaw that cannot be changed." After the shocking scene in front of him, Belsina couldn't help but shook his head and smiled bitterly. "Butler, your idea is good, but this relic has been completely destroyed. Even if it is developed, it will only be a quarry. What's the use? How can we afford to repair it? Besides, Hinduism rules the entire continent. Buddhism only accounts for a small proportion. Unlike Cambodia, which was founded on Buddhism, it does not have such a strong appeal. Therefore, it is not realistic to develop this relic. Let's go and find the sloth bear." As he said this, he led the way down to the valley. The road leading inside was really difficult to walk, with tree roots everywhere. Some tree roots exceeded the size of the main body. It seems that this valley will have floods in the rainy season in certain years, otherwise the roots of the trees would not be able to grow so thick. It is impossible to cut it with a machete, so we can only take a detour. Fortunately, the two bodyguards leading the way are experienced. We can find an unobstructed road, go around and enter the scope of the Buddhist ruins. Only then can we see some animal footprints. There are some trails where wild animals walk all year round, scattered among the dead leaves. Look at the claw marks on them, they are still relatively fresh. At this time, the two experienced bodyguards, Zizhao, frowned and stood up, and came to Belsina who was sitting on the stone, to rest and said worriedly, "Master, this valley is very strange. It is surrounded by mountains, and covered by jungles, so few humans set foot here. It has become a paradise for wild animals. In addition, it is so close to the water source and the vegetation is so dense, so the species of wild animals are very rich. We found tiger footprints, leopards, sloth bears, and even Asian jackals. I didn't expect that such a small valley could support so many carnivores. There were more than a dozen people around him, and each of them had a gun. He was not afraid of encountering tigers and leopards. He quickly found the sloth bear, shot it, and carried it back to report. Who has time to wander around in this ruins? So Belsina frowned and said, since we have seen the footprints of a sloth bear, can they match the one we found? This female sloth bear is a murderer. We came in for this sloth bear. If we can't catch it, how can we explain it to the workers at home? The two bodyguards frowned and looked at each other, lowered their heads to discuss, and then nodded seriously. Master, it is this female sloth bear, but there are more than one sloth bear footprints, and there are 4 or 5 adult males. So this place is very dangerous. Even if there are footprints left by sloth bears, it is very difficult to identify. It is hard to say when we can find the exact location of this sloth bear. Belsina raised his hand and looked at the watch on his hand. It was 10:30 in the morning, and it was still a long way from 6:30 in the afternoon, when it would be dark. At worst, I would not have lunch today, but I had to find the murderous sloth bear. So I asked the bodyguards to search freely. I followed with people behind me, and admired this 1,000-year-old Buddhist ruins. No wonder the old housekeeper has such good eyesight. It is indeed Buddhism. Some relatively large Buddha statues, although destroyed by the roots of trees. But the foundation of the Buddha statue is too large. From a distance, you can still vaguely see Buddhism. Some details of the statues and some features on the statues cannot deceive people. It is indeed a Buddhist site. After more than 2 hours of shuttling back and forth in the ruins, I finally arrived at a place under the guidance of the bodyguard. Beside the stone house, of course, because of the long-term rain erosion and the accumulation of humus of leaves and branches, most of the stone house has been covered, but the only exit of the stone house, that is, at the window position, there are some traces of wild animals frequently appearing around. Listen carefully and there are some movements in the cave. At this time, Belsina was excited. Damn lazy bear, you actually hid in this hole formed by food. There is only one exit. Let's see how you run. This is called catching a turtle in a jar. Chapter 275. That alluring golden light. This stone house, which was covered by mud to 2/3, had only one exit, and the area around the exit was very smooth. There were also some footprints, and on some branches there were traces of sloth bear hair. After all, sloth bears are one of the most densely haired bears in the world. With so many clues, it was certain that the female sloth bear that injured 2 workers of the Singh family lived in this den. With only this one exit, it was like catching a turtle in a jar. Looking carefully inside, it was pitch black and nothing could be seen. It was impossible for a person to crawl in, because in a narrow space, the sloth bear's fighting power was much stronger than that of a person. Just relying on the claws with 5 razors was enough for everyone to bear. Who had the steel and iron bones to fight against the claws of the sloth bear. What to do? Everyone sat by the cave and started to think of a solution. Someone suggested sealing the cave entrance and suffocating the sloth bear inside. Someone else suggested filling it with water, but where could they find a bucket? In the end, Ursina had a flash of inspiration, and he laughed loudly, attracting everyone's attention. Then he patted his head and said with a smile, the best way to deal with wild beasts is of course fire and smoke. We have checked just now. There is only one exit in this stone house. Just block this exit and light a bonfire, and then the smoke will flow into the cave from the direction of the exit. Not to mention the sloth bear, even the elephant will be choked to death. Then we can go in and catch the damn sloth bear. That's it. Although this trick is a bit insidious, it is very useful. A bonfire is lit at the entrance of the cave. Even if the sloth bear finds the smoke and wants to escape, it can't get out because the entrance is blocked by the flames. In the end, it can only surrender and be choked to death. Everyone looked at each other and agreed with this method. Although it was bad, it was very practical. The most important thing is to minimize the casualties of the Singh family. If another person, Bel Singh, died with him, the price would be too high and it would be impossible to bear it. So everyone cheered and began to look for dried wood and those dry weeds and leaves to collect. Bel Singh sat on a stone beside him smoking and admiring the magnificent Buddhist ruins in front of him. I also asked the experienced old housekeeper what kind of tree was the one that split the stone buildings in half. I got the correct answer, that it was a banyan tree, and its roots were particularly developed. It only took 20 minutes for more than a dozen people to collect enough firewood to burn for a day, and Belsina always carried a lighter and cigarettes when he smoked. With a lighter, ignition was no problem. Firewood was piled at the entrance of the cave, which was half covered by the soil, and then Belsina lit the fire starter. Let the firewood burn slowly. In order to increase the amount of smoke, a lot of fresh leaves were covered on the charcoal. Because this half-covered Buddhist building is closed, the internal space is also very cool and the temperature is low. The temperature outside is higher, so the smoke will spread in the direction of low temperature. In addition, a few strong bodyguards used banana leaves to fan the air in, and the smoke soon filled the entire underground space. In less than 5 minutes, Belle heard a roar coming from the cave. Yes, it was the roar of a sloth bear. But there were some strange things, and Belle could not find the reason, because the entrance was completely covered by bonfires. Even if the sloth bear knew that he was doomed, he did not dare to step over the flames, which was to seek death. In the end, he could only hear screams, muffled hums of slapping the wall, and even some clinking sounds of metal collisions. It seems that the sloth bear has been tossing around in the cave. After all, the sloth bear is also an animal, and it can't stand being smoked by smoke. This is because wild animals have strong resistance. If it were a person, he would have fainted as soon as he heard the movement in the cave. The fanner worked harder. The louder the movement inside, the more it proved that there must be a sloth bear in the cave. After more than 10 minutes, the cave was finally quiet. Belle chose a person with good ears and lay down at the entrance of the cave to listen. There was indeed no movement inside, only heavy breathing. Belsina did not need to give orders at this time. The bodyguards around also knew what to do, and quickly put out the bonfire at the entrance of the cave. At this time, thick smoke began to drift out of the cave. The smell was so choking, no wonder the sloth bear fainted. When all the smoke in the cave dissipated, who would go down with Belsina and a dozen bodyguards to catch the sloth bear that had fainted from the smoke? Even if it fainted, it was still a sloth bear. It was a wild beast. If it suddenly exploded, how could people beat the bear in a small space? If it was not handled properly, it would be buried in the bear's belly. So everyone looked at each other in a dilemma, and no one wanted to be the first to go down. Risking life to catch the bear, but not going down is not an option. Belsina has already said, I must see the bear alive or dead, and I must catch the sloth bear that hurt people. As long as the injured people can see how their boss avenges their employees, let alone a sloth bear, even an elephant will be caught and shot. Belsina was embarrassed to call out names when he saw that no one accepted the task. It would be a mistake to call out anyone or not. So let's see who has bad luck. The loser will enter this dark cave and bring the sloth bear up. After 3 minutes of elimination, one of the 2 older bodyguards who opened the way was unlucky and lost the game. We could only pinch our noses and drill in, because we didn't consider so many emergencies when we entered the mountain, let alone spending the night in the mountain and catching wild animals. So we only brought guns, ammunition and simple equipment. We didn't bring any ropes or flashlights, so when we entered the dark cave, people were much weaker than wild animals with outstanding night vision. We could only grope forward slowly with our hands, with a vine tied to our waist, which led to the entrance of the cave. There were 4 strong bodyguards holding it in their hands. If there was any emergency, they would pull the person out as soon as possible. If a sloth bear was found, the vine would be untied from the waist, tied to the feet of the sloth bear, and then slowly pulled out by the person. The cave was dark, damp, and smelled particularly bad, with all kinds of bugs and small animals running around everywhere. If you are timid and go in, you will definitely be scared to death. If you have claustrophobia, the consequences will be even more disastrous. Every half-meter of crawling, the person who went in reported that he was safe and shouted loudly, and then continued to crawl in. After crawling more than 3 or 4 meters, he suddenly felt an animal limb with very long hair and warm in his hand. Although the bodyguard couldn't see it, he could feel the temperature in his hand and shook it hard. The limb didn't react at all, so he untied the vines around his waist, tied the other person's ankles, and then climbed out first. This cave is also very tortuous. When crawling back to a 90-degree turn, the bodyguard inadvertently looked into the cave and saw a flash of golden light. He wondered if he had seen it wrong or was dazzled. How could there be golden light in the dark cave? End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.